Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from the KormanProductions Deep Dive TV podcast with my co-host Stacie here to talk about Scrooged for Christmas month. And happy Christmas month. Christmas is just around the corner. I have no idea when we're dropping this exactly, but sometime in the month.
Sometime in December.
Yep.
Happy December. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Happy
all of
New
that
Year.
Good stuff.
And
Scrooged.
yes.
Yeah, 1988.
1988.
A Christmas classic.
I was 7 years old when this movie came out. I'm pretty positive that I didn't watch it immediately when it came out, but I know that I watched it when I was a kid for sure.
I feel like I saw this movie when I was a kid and never watched it again until this week.
All right.
When I watched it for about 1,000 hours, it feels like, to take these notes.
And you're never going to watch this movie again. And you're not going to have to after
I
this.
think I'm going to have it memorized
Right.
after taking these 13 pages of notes I have in front of me, you guys.
I have about 14.
This is going to be this is one. So
Yes.
buckle in.
Strap
Get some
down.
hot cocoa.
Yep. Drink some tea.
Whew.
All right, so the movie's description reads as follows. A selfish, cynical television executive is haunted by three spirits bearing lessons on Christmas Eve. The movie was written by Mitch Glazer, 13 writing credits for him, including Great Expectations, which was another Charles Dickens classic, The Recruit, and A Very Murray Christmas, which has a lot of people from this movie in it. He has some producing credits as well as 2 acting credits, being somewhere in this film credited as guest. I know when I was originally taking these notes, I had no idea where he actually appeared in this film, but I've narrowed it down.
I know who the guests are.
Yes.
Guests are the people at the brothers' Christmas party.
Yes.
I got them. So one thing that we do, I'm going to say this up front, is we talk about all of the people in a film and tell you some of their other credits, and I match them up to where we see them in the movie. Scrooged has 115 credits listed on IMDb for actors.
It's worse than planes, trains, and automobiles. But it's somewhat more logical in the way it grouped actors together. Somewhat.
I matched a lot of them up, but I have a big list at the end of credits that I will just read at the end because I don't know where exactly we saw them.
All right. And this movie was also written by Michael O'Donoghue, who has 26 credits, mostly seeming to be the writer on a lot of Saturday Night Live specials. He also appears in this film. He died on November 8th, 1994, at the age of 54. The movie was directed by Richard Donner. 84 directorial credits for him, including the original Superman, the Lethal Weapons films, The Goonies, Conspiracy Theory. His last credit is Superman 2, the Donner cut. So basically, if you don't know the story behind that, he was actually fired midway through. Well, basically after Superman 1. He had shot some scenes for the sequel, but he was replaced by Richard Lester. And he ended up getting credit for directing that movie, despite the fact that Richard Donner actually shot half of it. And it was for years, it was because that was kind of a comedy mess. Though actually I have some strong feelings. I mean, I remember liking that film quite a bit. But
that's not the podcast we're doing.
Yeah. Richard Donner put together a Donner cut that put in a lot of the scenes that were removed from his airing, and so on and so forth. So that's the story behind that. He started his career directing Western television shows. I looked back at his Internet Movie Database page, and there's a lot of Westerns early on in his career. He also has 36 producer credits and 17 acting credits. He died on July 5th, 2021 at the age of 91.
Wow.
Before we go any further, I'll tell you a couple of things. One, this is not a spoiler-free podcast, so if you haven't watched the episode...
Far from spoiler-free.
Yes. Cover every inch of this movie. I highly recommend you go and check out the movie first, and then come back and give us a listen. Secondly, if you're listening on the platforms of this podcast and LB1, please follow and feel free to check out my YouTube channel, KormanProductions, where additional content can be discovered. If you're already on my YouTube channel, please like, share, and comment, and subscribe to our channel. All right, Stacie, your thoughts on this week's movie. I know this was kind of a torturous experience for you.
So as I already said, I only saw this when I was a child. I don't think I ever revisited it. I mean, I know the premise, obviously. I remember, the concept.
Yeah.
I know, A Christmas Carol.
Right.
But any little nuances of what happens in this film was completely lost on me. So I did what I usually do when it's something I'm not super familiar with, is I watched it once just to watch it. I watched this with my husband about a week ago, and I enjoyed it. It was a fun watch. I was like, yeah, that's a fun holiday movie. And then I, watch it the second time where I pause every 30 seconds to take the notes and I'm pulling from IMDb and I'm doing all of these things. And I've put more time into these notes, I feel, than any podcast we've done so far.
Right. I mean, maybe Under the Dome.
Well, maybe just
season.
because it was a whole season. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was a rough one for me to get through the notes. And I think it's just because there's so many people that we see for the blink of an eye. And, I say this every time we do a movie, I say this, that it's the most, like, the credits are the craziest that we've seen. And every single time we seem to find something crazier.
I don't think it's going to be possible after this.
So these are crazy credits. And one thing about the movie, which also, is a big factor in the credits, is it's so meta.
Yes, very.
So the film is about a movie within a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And the credits have all sorts of people that are, like, not actors in acting roles.
Right.
That are either working on actual behind the scenes of this movie, in addition to getting the credits, or they typically take those roles in other projects, but they aren't in this project, but that's who they're playing in the production of Scrooge, without the D, which is the movie they're making within the movie Scrooged.
Right.
So it's complicated to take notes on, and it's complicated to talk about.
Yes. So I saw this movie sometime when I was a kid, and it fits right in with my type of sense of humor. The trailer that we will eventually see when we get into actually talking about the movie is something that I could easily see myself doing. Like, I could see myself making a Christmas themed trailer that includes blood and guts and people dying.
You're talking about his trailer.
Yes.
That had nothing to do with the movie.
Right, no. So, yeah, I mean, this movie fit right into my kind of sense of humor. I loved this movie as a kid. I have revisited it, and I was really excited to talk about this film.
I see a butt on your lips.
I do have some issues, and I even had these issues back then.
Yeah.
The ending of this movie goes totally off the rails.
Well, they gotta wrap it up with a pretty bow. It's a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
And it's Christmas Carol.
Right,
They
yeah.
can't drift too far from the source material here.
It just feels like it's just like Bill Murray wandered on set drunk, and they just filmed it.
And then everybody was happy at the end.
Right. And I don't see enough character development throughout the film to justify where his character gets at the end of the film.
How do you feel about A Christmas Carol?
That's a good question.
I mean, that's the story. This is the story.
I kind of feel like we saw more progression in some of those other stories. I mean, I guess it kind of depends on which version you're talking about.
Right. I mean, I've never actually read the book myself.
Right, yeah.
Have you?
No, not the actual story that it's based on, which is by Charles Dickens.
Right.
So I'm not really sure.
I mean, I've seen a few different versions and different things, but
it just seems like he's an evil asshole all the way until he's suddenly not.
I mean, that's kind of what it is, though. I'm pretty sure.
I mean, I get that, but I feel like you should see a little bit of a change. I mean, I guess you do.
There are small moments.
Yeah.
You can see small moments, but he doesn't want to admit it to himself, even.
Yeah. But I mean, like, I enjoy this movie tremendously. It has Bill Murray in it. I'm a big fan of him.
Yeah, I love Bill Murray.
Yes.
But I am going to say I will continue to pick Groundhog Day over this anytime.
Oh, absolutely. And it's funny. We accidentally laid out the track connecting all the way from Son-in-Law to Groundhog Day. Like, we have connections all the way from that movie through Planes, Trains, and Automobile, this movie, and Groundhog Day. There's connections all the way through.
Sure.
So, and okay, so I'm not explaining what I mean by that. So we started off like trying to pick movies that had connections to people that we have talked about,
right?
Like our Nova Scotian acting set,
right?
And we've
our friends there and our other TV. So primarily we talk about TV shows, right? We've been talking about movies for the various holidays. But this is kind of our extra content. This isn't our meat and potatoes. Our meat and potatoes is talking about television. It is the TV podcast. So yeah, we're trying to pick things that are relevant to the other things we talk about.
We started getting away from that, but we
still hit some classics.
But we still did it.
Right,
There's still connections among those things.
Yeah,
so we kind of accidentally still did it.
I've Quantum Leap in my 13 pages of notes 3 or 4 times.
Yes.
On accident.
Yes. Yep. I mean, one person we knew was here.
Sure.
Because of plane, trains, and automobiles. So, and I was actually able to figure out who the heck she was this time.
Yay!
So, but yeah.
Yeah, that would be Susan Isaacs.
Yes.
I'll talk about her when we get there.
Yeah.
But I feel like I know her now.
Right.
Like, I had no idea who this woman was a month ago.
Right.
A month ago when we're recording, which would have been back when we were recording her Quantum Leap episodes.
Right, yes.
And now she's like, oh yeah, Susan Isaacs. Like, we know her.
Yeah, we've covered like 4 different things that she's been in. So, yeah. And this was all accidental. I enjoyed this film quite a bit, even despite what I just said. Though, these days, it kind of feels like I'm watching Bill Murray act like Bill Murray in this film, because he's gotten himself into some hot water these days for how he's acted on set in the past. Probably because we're in this new era of, like, you can't get away with the same behavior you used to be able to back in the day. But so he has some taint on him, unfortunately, because of some of the things that have come out, but some of which we actually knew, like his behavior towards I forgot her name, but she was on Charlie's Angels, Lucy Wu, I think it was. I had heard that story already, so I already kind of knew that they had gotten into it at one point, didn't get along. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't really change how I feel about Bill Murray. He's still enjoyable to watch. And of course, yeah, so I guess I've done enough blabbering. Do we have anything else to say before diving in?
One thing I do want to say that I'll put here is how I talked about this as a film within a film, right?
Yes.
And that reminds me, of course, of Man of La Mancha.
Of course, yes.
Which we went to go see in August of this year. We went to see a live theater version of Man of La Mancha with Scott Bakula, the star of Quantum Leap. We went to see him. And the whole, thing with that story is it's a play within a play.
Right.
Well, that's what this is. This is a movie within a movie.
Very much so.
And it almost feels like this is borrowing from that concept, as much as it's borrowing from A Christmas Carol.
Yeah, I see that.
It's just such a strange way to look at it,
Yeah, that makes sense.
And
by the way, if you want to, and you have 2 hours to spare, we do have a detailed podcast on our adventures to go see Man of La Mancha.
Yes, we do. It was quite a day we had.
Yes, we did. And then we've
back
had, at this point,
August, when it was warm out.
Yes, at this point, we've had another one, or another couple of days, because we already took our trip to, wow, that's kind of crazy to think. We've already gone to Lincoln and seen Brian Greene again, and possibly met Scott Bakula for the 3rd time.
In theory.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's where I'll mention that we didn't actually mention yet that we're time traveling right now.
Yep.
Because we are not recording this in December.
No. We did this in advance so that we had time to do it.
October 12th hasn't happened for us yet.
Yep.
But by the time you're listening to it, it has.
Yes.
So I hope we had a great time.
I hope we did too. All right. So anything else to say before diving in?
So the highlight of this movie for me.
Yep.
Carol Kane.
Yes. She's quite entertaining. Yes.
This movie might have lost me. It feels long. It might have lost me. But then she pops in and I'm okay again. I love her.
Yeah.
And I loved her portrayal here. I wish she was in more of the film than she was.
What do you know Carol Kane from, just out of curiosity?
Well, when we get to her, I've got all those notes about her. But,
okay.
Taxi.
Taxi, okay.
Of course, is where I know her from originally.
Yeah.
And Princess Bride.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually saw her on Broadway in Wicked.
Oh, did you get to meet her?
No, I didn't get to meet her. She doesn't do it anymore. This was, Wicked's been on for 20 years now, but
right.
This was back when when my sibling turned 18, we went to Wicked.
Wow.
So that was, I don't know, many years ago.
All right. Sorry. All right. Anything else to say?
Let's go ahead. Dive in.
Okay.
But yeah, it might take me a minute as we hit all these people because there's a lot of people to hit really fast.
Yes. So the movie begins with haunting music as we pan from the clouds slowly and we pan into Santa Claus's workshop. There's a lot of stuff going on. We have elves. Santa and Mrs. Claus are preparing for Christmas. Santa is played by Al Red Dog Weber. He has 4 credits for him. And he seems to have been some type of musician, but I wasn't able to get any other information on him. But he seems like someone that that was actually famous for being some kind of singer or something.
I'm not sure. I
Okay.
have notes that he was in the films Buddy and We the People.
So, and Mrs. Claus is played by Jean Spiegel Howard, 68 credits for her, including Apollo 13 as Jim Lovell's mother. I remember that role. Cocoon, and 2 episodes of Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman. She died on September 2nd, 2000. Santa's workshop is suddenly besieged by terrorists, but who should come to the rescue but Lee Majors, playing Lee Majors.
Yeah, so Lee Majors has the credit as Lee Majors.
He has 133 act credits, including The $6 Million Man. He was in a couple episodes of a couple of Fallout movies, as well as returning to the character for 6 episodes of The Bionic Woman and a 3-episode stint on Weeds.
Yeah, so yeah, he's the $6 Million Man, and in this clip that we're watching, which we'll soon learn is a
preview,
a trailer was the word I was looking for a film, for a fictional film. They call him out as, like, they say, look, it's Lee Majors, the $6 Million Man. So I think out of all the 115 people in this film, Lee Majors gets the most meta award. Because Lee Majors is playing himself in a movie, within the movie, that he's playing himself in.
My brain is officially broken. I don't think I can continue this podcast, but I will try. All right, so we don't get to see how this ends because it's a preview, it's a trailer.
It's a trailer.
For something airing on the IBC network. We next see a commercial.
It's airing at 7 p.m. on Christmas Eve. We're going through our Christmas Eve lineup.
Oh, okay.
And
well, I want to watch that then.
So that's airing at 7 p.m. on Christmas Eve, and it's called The Night the Reindeer Died.
Ooh, sounds dramatic.
And the other person we have already here is the announcer. He's the person who's going to announce all of these. He is played by Dick McGavern.
That's quite a name.
He was in 2 episodes of Dallas. He was in the film Die Hard 2.
Okay.
And some other things, I'm sure.
Gotcha. So we next see a commercial for Robert Goulet singing Cajun style, and he's played by Robert Goulet.
Yeah, so we have another self cameo.
And by the way, this is our connection to Beetlejuice, a movie that we covered, because he was also in that movie.
He was. He played Maxie Dean in Beetlejuice.
Yes.
But he is, of course, a renowned singer and a stage actor. And this promo was for Bob Goulet's old-fashioned Cajun Christmas, which is airing at 8:30 on Christmas Eve.
Then we have a Leave It to Beaver style show titled Father Loves Beaver. And, okay, so okay, so that is a sexual joke.
Oh, that's what they meant, yes.
Okay.
So this is playing at 9 a.m., or 9 p.m. rather. And it's a holiday special episode of Father Loves Beaver, which is, of course, a fictional take on Leave It to Beaver. And these characters that we see are credited, the characters are June Cleaver and Wally Cleaver.
Right.
And it's, again, the credits on this movie are so weird because sometimes the people playing themselves have their own names as their characters. Sometimes it's the character in the film.
Yep.
Sometimes it's the actor playing the character in the film. But the credits belong to June Cleaver and Wally Cleaver. June Cleaver is played by June Chandler. She has 12 acting credits, including No Way Out. But
that
of course,
is crazy. That is the exact movie I cited.
Oh, well, when there's only 12 to pick from, I mean.
I guess. You're correct.
But of course she was picked here because she does have a resemblance to Barbara Billingsley.
Right.
Who played June Cleaver in Leave It to Beaver. And on my first watch through this week, this is just a very quick clip.
You thought it was actually her?
I was like, is this actual footage that they somehow reused of these people? So Wally Cleaver is played by Michael Idem. Michael Idem.
That's as close as I was going to get.
His only credit.
Yep.
But he of course, is picked because he resembles Tony Dow, who played Wally Cleaver. And I think they did an amazing job of putting this little promo together and making it look like the set and the actors that were on Leave It to Beaver, 40 years after the fact.
Right.
30 years.
Yes.
The 80s, not the 90s, but yeah.
And then we see a boardroom watching the commercials. One of the people in there is Frank Cross. He's the boss, played by Bill Murray. 101 credits for him, including all the Ghostbusters movies. And it's funny because after Ghostbusters 2, he really didn't want to do anything with the franchise at all. and I think he was like basically had his arm twisted to appear in the all-female Ghostbusters 2016 movie. And I'm not sure why he agreed to appear in the other two movies, but he did, and we're grateful for that. He was also Groundhog Day, which we are going to cover. And that's one of the other movies that I really wanted to do.
I presume we're going to cover it in February. That's a guess.
Well, yes. My idea was to cover it and have it drop exactly on Groundhog Day, regardless of what day that is. And, of course, Rushmore and plenty of other credits.
Yeah, Caddyshack.
Aloha, Stripes,
He has a
Tootsie.
spot. He has a role in Little Shop of Horrors, which actually gets a call-out in this film.
It does. And he checks himself out in the mirror at his desk as his underlings look on in fear, including Grace, played by Alfred Woodward. 132 credits for her, including Star Trek First Contact.
Which I actually just watched for the first time last night.
Really? Your husband made you watch it?
He did.
Oh.
And she came on the screen and I went, I recognize her. Who is she? And he goes, oh, well, she's an important part of this movie. And I was like, no, who's the actress?
Right.
And he's like, I don't know. So I had to look her up. And I saw her name and I was like, oh, that's why she looks familiar. Because she's literally in the notes that I'm in the middle of taking.
you literally just spent 1,000 hours watching this character.
Yeah. So I was like, I was impressed that I recognized her. I didn't know what I recognized her from.
Right. Well, to be fair, she was a little bit older in Star Trek.
Yeah, it's about a decade later.
And she looks a little different.
She also is in the movie Heart and Souls.
Yes.
I love that film. Want to cover that someday.
Okay.
And she's in Annabelle.
And she was also in Primal Fear and Capex. Elliot Loudermouth is played by Bobcat Goldthwait. Okay, so I was never really a fan of this guy. I do enjoy him in this movie a little bit. He has 38 directorial stints, along with 117 as an actor. Lots of voice work. He's on That 70s Show, ER, and Herman's Head. Anything for him?
Tons of voice work,
yes.
I noticed.
He was also a comedian back in the day as well.
Yeah, he's a fairly well-known
yes.
entertainer.
I would say that's the word. I would say that's the word.
That's the word.
The random IBC executives in the room are played by Jeff Joseph, 50 credits for him, including the movie Dave. And I'm only bringing that up because, I'm also named Dave.
Sure.
3 episodes of Million Little Things.
Yep.
And an episode of Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman.
He's also in 8 episodes of Big Sky.
There's also Sanford Jensen. He's in an episode of Perfect Strangers, Family Ties, and Remington Steele.
Okay.
Dick Blasio, 7 credits for him, 24 writing credits, and some producing credits.
Yeah, he is the writer on, he's got a lot of writing credits. He wrote 228 episodes of Mad TV.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And this is one of those examples of we're grabbing people that are not actors.
Right. Yeah.
To play people who are in other areas of film production.
Right, yeah. So after a beat, he asks to see the Scrooged promo. And we see John Houseman, 50 credits for him. This is his second to last role. He's, of course, the announcer. Or, I guess, he's the guy reading the story.
Yeah, you're a little out of order for me. So sorry if it takes me a beat to catch up.
So his last credit was being on Naked Gun. He was in a Lincoln miniseries, which is funny because we're going to go see a mini Lincoln play. And he also appeared in both The $6 Million Man and Bionic Woman.
He did.
He died on October 31st, 1988, at the age of 86. He was born in 1902.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Yes.
That's a number.
Yep.
So here's what's happening. The announcer's telling us that at 10 p.m., so we went through the whole night of what's happening Christmas Eve. At 10 p.m., IBC is showing Scrooge, but here's the deal. It's live.
Right, yes.
This is a promo for this live film that they're doing, which they did a lot of in the 80s. This is a real thing that happened.
Yes.
I mean, not this movie particularly, but this is a thing that was big in the 80s and in the 90s. I don't think they do it as much anymore. Do live presentations like that. But it was a big deal. It's a big deal for IBC, and this is their promo for it, and this is what they're here for, and this is why they're having a meeting. And it's so big that it's going to be coming to you via satellite from New York, Bethlehem, Helsinki, West Berlin, and the Great Barrier Reef. And one thing I want to point out is they say it's Charles Dickens' classic Scrooge.
Yes.
They don't say A Christmas Carol.
Right.
Within this fictional universe, not only is, Leave It to Beaver have a different name, But the book is called Scrooge, not A Christmas Carol.
Gotcha.
Like they say, Charles Dickens' classic Scrooge.
So all the actors that are playing the characters in the live TV production are actually playing themselves, playing these roles.
So John Houseman is narrating the story
right
during the live feed.
Buddy Hackett as Scrooge.
Yeah. Now, and this is where it doesn't make sense to me, the credits, because he's credited in Scrooged, the story we're talking about, as Scrooge, not as Buddy Hackett. But Mary Lou Retton is credited as Mary Lou Retton, not as Tiny Tim.
Gotcha.
So it's very inconsistent, these credits.
Yeah. 62 credits for him, including The Little Mermaid and its sequels.
Yeah, he played Scuttle in all of The Little Mermaid.
Yes.
Everything.
An episode of Boy Meets World and Dinosaurs. He died on June 30th, 2003 at the age of 78. Jamie Farr, he's playing Jacob Marley.
Yes.
He has 102 credits, including MASH, Corporal Klinger.
Captain Klinger, wasn't it?
I thought it was Corporal. The credits said...
He played Klinger.
Yeah. He also was in a sequel that I didn't know existed called After MASH, and he was in 2 episodes of That 70s Show. And Mary Lou Retton, who plays Tiny Tim, or plays herself playing Tiny Tim. She plays
herself playing Tiny Tim. Yeah, she's credited as Mary Lou Retton. I wonder if these were all individual contract negotiations, is why some of them are one way and some of them are the other way.
She was a famous Olympian. She was in the Olympics.
Yeah, she's an Olympic gymnast.
Right. And she has 10 acting credits and still makes appearances on talk shows to this day.
All right.
So Frank is not impressed by this promo. It's very saccharine. And he tells them that it all sucks. He tells them that he has to kill them. He's joking, of course, I think. Loudermilk says the ad is getting a hell of a response. Frank says he's the youngest executive at the company for a reason, and that he wants the people to be so afraid to miss it. And then shows them his promo, which includes a lot of blood and guts, terror, drug abuse, and better watch this show of your life. So the narrator says, you better watch this show or your life might just depend on it. Like I said, this is the kind of thing I might produce as a joke.
Yeah, well, it doesn't seem like a great promo for the film. Especially since it's the day before Christmas Eve.
Right.
Like, we're already, things are in motion.
Right.
And I'm going to point out here, we had uncredited listings that we saw in the first trailer for Scrooge, and that is the Solid Gold Dancers, who were playing the Scroogettes. The Solid Gold Dancers is a real dance troupe.
Yep.
Who are representing themselves within the movie. But they are uncredited, and they are Audrey K. Barbashian, Leslie Cook, Jamal Lucas, and Maserena. And probably said all of those wrong, I apologize.
So, the executives are not exactly digging this trailer. They end up leaving the boardroom meeting puking. Elliot ends up confronting him gently and saying he's going to frighten people. Frank says it's a little late to get this kind of feedback, and Elliot says, well, this is kind of the first time I'm seeing it. And Frank insincerely says that if he can change it, he'll let him know in 5 minutes.
Yeah, if I can change it in the next 5 minutes, I'll let you know. And of course, Elliot is so naive that he thinks this is a good thing.
Yeah, he even goes as far as to say that they are a lot of alike, which of course Frank does not appreciate too much. So Elliot leaves. Frank says that we don't want to scare the dickens out of people, and this joke goes straight over Elliot's head, much to Frank's disappointment. It didn't go over my head. I appreciated it. Frank asks Grace, who was that? And basically has Loudermilk fired.
Yeah, now this is one of the executives at his table, and he doesn't even know who he is.
Right.
That tells you anything about who Frank Cross is.
Yes. So he has him tossed out of the building, and he doesn't care that it's Christmas. Frank sees a bit of artwork from Grace's kids up and basically rips it up. He's off to a great start, being a total bastard in this film.
Yeah. And now, there was a woman in this whole scene.
Yeah, I forgot to take note of who she was.
I couldn't figure out who she was.
I know who she is, but I
couldn't figure it out. So she's probably one of these people on my last page.
Let's see. I know her last name was Trainer.
I need another page. Hang on. There's too many pages.
Oh, yeah. Okay, here she is. She was Ted.
She is Ted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mary Ellen Trainer.
Yeah. See, I didn't figure out who Ted was.
Yeah. She just looks really. The only reason I was able to figure it out at all is because she looks really similar to the actress in the picture. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that she's 10.
Okay, so Mary Ellen Trainor was in the film Freaky Friday, as well as 23 episodes of Roswell, is what I noted for her.
So we see Elliot getting marched out of the building as he basically talks to himself, rehearsing what he's going to say to his wife. Frank both watches him from a telescope and tells Grace what he's getting various people for Christmas, which ranges from towels to VHS players, and that's as far as it goes.
Yeah, so he's basically giving the people he really likes a VCR, and everybody else gets a towel. Most people are on the towel list.
Including his own brother.
Which is no good. And he's bragging about how they got Elliot out of the property in less than 5 minutes. Grace is getting more and more annoyed.
Right.
About this entire situation. And it's really interesting if you look at the relationship between Grace and Frank. She clearly knows he's
a total bastard?
Yeah. And she doesn't, she stands up to him.
Yeah.
It'll start, really soon. She stands up to him. She's telling him here, you can't give your brother a towel. She's not afraid of him. She's not afraid of getting fired. But clearly he fires people all the time. There was a code word for it. She picked up the phone and called HR, and she just had to say 2 words, and they knew what to do. That's how frequently this happens.
It's interesting that she does stand up to him, and yet he seems to not ever do that to her.
Right.
So there is some kind of mutual respect.
They have quite a relationship.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to watch that as this film progresses.
Yeah.
He gives her just as much crap as he gives everyone else.
Yeah.
And she takes it to some extent, but she also does stand up for herself and push back.
Maybe that's something that he appreciates.
It's just very interesting how, they've obviously been together a long time. We talk about how
they definitely worked together a while.
How she did Christmas gifts in previous years.
Yeah.
So I don't know. They have something that he doesn't have with even the executives,
So Grace gets a call, and Frank's boss is on his way, and this is Mr. Rhinelander.
Rhinelander.
And before he gets there, he tells her to put herself down as a towel as well, and for her bonus, she gets a face cloth. How
Yay!
generous! Mr. Preston Rhinelander arrives, played by Robert Mitchum. 132 credits for him, including the human comedy. This was in 1943.
I just noted that he was in lots and lots of 40s and 50s westerns. That was the majority that stood out for me.
All right, the most interesting thing for me, though, is he appeared in the original Cape Fear, and then was also in the remake as well as a totally different character.
Okay.
That was the Robert De Niro film. And he died on July 1st, 1997 at the age of 79. Frank sucks up to him, but he's there to talk about cats and dogs watching television. He wants to program for these animals. Not entire shows for them, but have some things that have pet appeal in them.
Yeah, he wants to put in birds and squirrels in their shows because he says that there's a university study that shows cats and dogs are starting to watch television, and that's a whole new demographic for him. And you know what? I'm going to stand up for him and say, this is true. He cites that in 20 years, they're going to be viewers. And guess what? We're more than 20 years now. But my dog watches TV every day.
I knew you were going to go there for sure.
There is literally a paid subscription you can subscribe to called Dog TV. Now, I do not subscribe to this. But we do turn on the free programming on YouTube that does the same thing. Look up Dog TV. There's a bajillion hours of content for your pets.
Yes.
And it's meant for you to put on, when you have to leave the animal home alone.
Yep.
And my dog will sit and watch TV. She does.
Cue the more you know music.
So if you didn't know this watch TV. Yeah. She watches TV with me. She likes, she'll pay attention when there's lots of music and sounds and lights. She's looking. When there's animals on TV, we tell her, "Hey, look, Lily, there's a dog on TV." So this entirely is a thing, and he was very
ahead of his time.
And I think it was meant to be a joke here.
Yeah, Frank thinks he's nuts.
It's definitely meant to be a joke in 1988, but I'm going to tell you, 40 years later, which is where we're about.
Yep.
It's a thing. There is no programming just for dogs. So it exists.
Despite the fact that Frank thinks he's nuts, he has to indulge him because he is his boss. Going as far as to suggest, having a dormouse in Scrooge. Preston points out that the importance of Scrooge and what's the live broadcast. And Frank says he's overseeing all aspects of production and that they will own Christmas. They make lunch plans, and Preston disappears into the elevator. And he soon meets Bryce Cummings, who says they met at Spago. He's played by John Glover. 138 credits for him, including 145 episodes of Smallville. He was Lionel Luthor in that series. Gremlins 2, which is a movie I would love to cover. Actually, I'd love to cover both the Gremlins movies at some point. And an episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
He was also in 4 episodes of Fear the Walking Dead.
Ah, yes, I did notice that, and I figured you'd bring it up. Bryce makes a reference to just missing Preston, and then gets into the elevator and disappear. Frank runs into his office, instructing someone to close the door hard, and wants Grace to look into Bryce Cummings, calling him an L.A. slimeball.
Yeah, so he doesn't get a good feeling from Bryce.
Yes.
He's very right. I mean, there's a reason that Frank he's the president of the company, because he knows what he's doing. He might be an asshole, but he knows the business. He knows what's going on. And until, this really weird day he's about to have, he handles things.
Right.
And he knows that Bryce is trouble. Bryce is coming for his job. That's what's happening.
Yes. Yep.
And he knows as soon as he sees this kid going to see the big boss, which I'm assuming Ryan Lander's the owner of the company.
Yep.
If Frank's the president.
Yeah.
He knows that he's got to get on top of this kid, because this kid is no good for him.
Right.
And let's see, one other person that was in this scene is an uncredited listing for the elevator operator, whose name is Sig. Mr. Ryan Lander talked to him and said, Sig, take me to whatever floor.
Yeah.
He's played by Sig Froelich. I don't have any credits for him. I did not look up credits for the uncredited listings, because I had no energy left for that after the credited listings.
Yes.
But I do have their names to at least call them out. But I do want to shout out here Serenity from the Quantum Leap podcast, because that's the job she wants.
Oh, yes. Yes.
She told us during that trip to see Man of La Mancha that she wants to push the buttons in an elevator.
Well, maybe we should show her this movie so she can see how it's done. All right, so Grace says she's going to leave because she has to take her son to the doctor. Frank says she can't. He yells that they are indivisible. If he works late, she's got to work late. And if she doesn't, blah, 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 blah. Basically, he goes on this long rant.
So he's telling her, you can't leave, and guess what? She leaves.
Right. So she informs him that his brother is here, and she did not tell him about his great Christmas towel. His brother James is on an exercise bike. He's played by John Murray, one of the 3 actual brothers of Bill Murray that appear in this film, along with Joel Murray, who is credited as a guest. That would be in the same scene.
We didn't get to them yet, though.
Well, when I was writing these notes, I didn't realize that I was going to figure out who the guests were. But yeah, the other brother in this film is more recognizable, and we'll get to him when we talk to him about him. But John has 16 credits, including Elf and Caddyshack.
Yeah, that's exactly what I put down for him.
Okay. So he suggests maybe he was a little rough on her, and starts to use the saying about treating people on the way up, and Frank perverts it, saying, yeah, you can be mean to them on the way down, too. You can have 2 opportunities to rough them up. He hangs with his brother. He's walking somewhere.
Yeah, they leave together, and they're walking in the street, and we pass the street musicians. Did you...
I did not.
Okay, so we've got 4 street musicians that are playing.
Okay.
See, there's a lot of credits, but they go really quick.
Yes.
Most of them. We have Miles Davis, famous jazz musician.
That's something I totally missed.
Yeah, he's one of the street musicians.
Okay.
We have Larry Carlton. He is a TV composer. He actually was the composer for Who's the Boss, for example.
Okay.
Yeah, he's one of the street musicians. We have David Sanborn, who is a real-life saxophone player.
Pretty cool.
And, switch pages. Our 4th street musician is Paul Schaefer, who was the musical director for David Letterman. And he's also the voice of Hermes in Hercules.
Okay.
So yeah, they just pass by these street musicians. And...
he continues to be his charming self.
Frank's like, oh, these people should be arrested. This is illegal. He doesn't care that these musicians are playing beautiful Christmas music the day before Christmas Eve.
Yeah, James is like, so you don't like Christmas very much, but Frank says he very much does. Everyone stays home, watches television, and ad revenue goes up 30%. but celebrating it, not so much. Hanging out with his brother and a family at a Christmas party, not so much. He totally refuses to do that.
Yeah, James asks if Frank's going to make it. What he specifically says is, are you going to make Christmas dinner this year?
Right.
And it took until my second time watching this that I realized he meant, are you going to make it
to the party?
To my party.
Right.
But the first time I thought he meant, are you cooking dinner?
Yeah, I find that to be pretty unlikely, but yeah.
But yeah, he's asking him, are you going to come to Christmas?
Yep.
And Frank says, I like seeing you, and have a happy new year.
Right, yes.
So he passes right by Christmas. He's like, it was great seeing you. This right here, this 30-second conversation, this was our Christmas. Have a good new year.
Right, basically.
And totally dismisses him.
So Frank continues to be the most wonderful guy ever by stealing a cab from an elderly woman. He just needs to kick dogs and cats to literally be the worst human being ever.
Yeah.
So
yeah, this woman's hailing a taxi, and he steals her from her. Reminded me very much of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Yes.
We covered that movie if you want to go back and check it out.
Yeah, we did that.
And you know what? Out of the 100+ credit listings, I could not figure out who this woman was.
Nor could I, and I tried.
There was a woman. She had lines. She's probably in this list somewhere. I didn't find her.
I figured she'd be like taxi, something related to a taxi.
She's probably like, I don't know,
woman number 1 or something.
I don't know. She'll probably be in the list at the end.
So we get a humanitarian award, which he claims he will always cherish, but he leaves it behind in a cab. So basically, he's not going to cherish this award.
So this is a very quick scene, and I was confused by this. It was a blink of an eye. He goes and he accepts this award. First of all, why is he getting a humanitarian of the year award?
Yes.
How does this person win that award?
Yeah,
in what universe did that happen?
I don't know.
Secondly, there's 1 million people in this room, and the scene's about 30 seconds long.
Yeah.
Including a credited role for the Archbishop.
Yeah, I know. I noticed the Archbishop credit. I didn't know where that was.
The Archbishop is standing next to him on the stage when he's receiving his award.
Okay. He doesn't have any lines.
He doesn't have any lines. He's literally seen for the blink of an eye. About half a second he's on screen. I'm wondering if there's a deleted scene somewhere that's just not in this cut that we watched.
Perhaps. I mean, I think that happens.
But the Archbishop is played by Peter Bromilo.
Okay.
He was in The Rocketeer, and My Stepmother is an Alien.
Interesting.
Among other things. But yeah, he, in at least this cut, when we watched this, what did we watch this on, Pluto?
Yeah.
We watched this on Pluto TV, so it's entirely possible that we're watching an abbreviated version of this film.
I don't recall in any time that I ever watched this movie any other scene that involves like a storyline with that actor at all.
It was just so weird that this whole scene was 30 seconds. This actor literally is just standing behind him.
Right.
And has a credit.
Yeah, maybe that scene went on longer and we actually saw him get introduced and the scene was cut back for time.
Maybe.
I mean, that would make sense. That we wouldn't want to go on too long with that award ceremony. But we briefly see Laudermilk fall apart as he gets booze and then gets drenched by what I assume is Frank's cab.
Yeah, so there was a car splashes him with a puddle, and that was my note here. I was like, is this the cab that Frank is in?
I think that's what we're led to believe because, throughout the film, we see Laudermilk getting increasingly worse and worse.
Right.
And we see, Frank, basically walking past him.
Yeah.
And so he goes back to the office, Frank, and 2 guards greet him, and I forgot to take note of who they were.
I have the guards. The IBC guards are played by Bill Marcus. Both of these guards are in Quantum Leap.
Oh, okay. What episodes?
Bill Marcus was in Dreams.
Okay.
He played Captain Vincent in that episode.
Okay.
He was also in the movie Die Hard.
Ah, okay.
And the other guard is played by Cal Gibson. He was in the Quantum Leap episode, So Help Me God.
Okay.
He played a gardener in that episode.
All right.
And he was in one episode of ER.
Okay. So, Grace brings home her son. We see her coming back from a train. Calvin, who is this story's Tiny Tim, he's played by Nicholas Phillips. 4 credits for him, and I didn't take note of any of them.
He played Randy Jackson in The Jacksons, An American Dream.
Ah, yes.
So I'm assuming he spoke.
Yes.
In that film and sung.
He speaks in this film, too,
He does. He finally does.
Spoiler alert.
The whole thing for Calvin is he doesn't talk.
Yes.
That's our guiding line. And Grace just spent $200 at this doctor's appointment. All the doctor did is confirm that he doesn't talk.
Yes, thanks for that. Our healthcare system at work, ladies and gentlemen. So Frank is in his office. He hears a knock. He says to come, but no one enters. And he just hears another knock.
He grabs a gun.
Yeah, and Frank asks, who's there? And it's strange that he's going to this response, who's there, asking the second time rather than asking the first time. But there's no response. He goes to the door. He opens it. There's no one there. But then there's a bang at the door, there's grumbling, an explosion, and there's hardcore knocking at the door, and it really seems like there's like a beast really trying to come through.
And then it does. Someone bursts through the door.
And in comes a ghostly figure that Frank shoots at, but it goes straight through him and hits the alcohol instead. In fact, he makes a joke about that. I don't mind you shooting at me, but we'll take it easy on the alcohol.
And when this ghost ends up finally drinking the drink that he's making, you just see the liquor pouring out of all of the bullet wounds in his body.
I mean, it's an obvious joke, but it's funny nonetheless. So, and he also has this mouse that comes out of his house, out of his head, and there's a golf ball that falls out.
Yeah, so he died playing golf, and I found that very interesting that there's this golf ball just sticking in the back of his head. Like, they didn't remove that when they were prepping him for burial, or is this just the state you died in, not the state you were buried in?
I'm pretty sure this is the state he died in.
Okay.
But Frank recognizes him as Lou Hayward, as someone who has been dead for 7 years. He's played by John Forsythe. He was Charlie in Charlie's Angels.
Yes.
And
he was Charlie in Charlie's Angels, both
the TV series and
the
the
1967 movie.
Yeah.
The 1976 movie. I said that backwards. 108 episodes of the TV show. And the 2000 movie.
Yes.
And the 2003 sequel, Full Throttle.
So the 2000 sequel had Bill Murray in it.
Right.
The sequel after that did not.
But he played Charlie in all of these things, and I had no idea that one person did all that.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, not that I didn't watch that show, but that's just such an interesting thing to me.
Yeah.
That one person played that role for 40 years.
Yeah, and he was also in 2 episodes of The Love Boat and 30 episodes of the John Forsythe Show.
Yeah, he had his own show in 1965. He was also in all 220 episodes of Dynasty.
Ah, okay.
So this is a busy man.
Yes.
And
not anymore, because he died on April 1st, 1992 at the age of 90. Was that a little bit of a tasteless joke? I don't know. Anyway.
So, Lou Hayward was Frank's old boss.
Yes.
And we'll also get to see him in not ghost form later.
He refers to him as his best friend as well. So Lou tells him that he's going to have to change his ways or he is in big trouble.
Was it just me, or does Ghost Lou remind you of Bernie Lomax?
I see that. I see what you're talking about.
Like, I totally felt him in this scene.
So, despite his warning, Frank continues to be a smartass. Lou tells him that he will be visited by 3 ghosts, the first tomorrow at noon. Frank keeps talking, and Lou says that this is no time to joke, but his last chance. And that he basically says that, kindness should have been his business rather than the one that he ultimately ended up taking. And Lou puts him through a window, and this is a pretty good effect for 1988.
It's very strange because he magically puts him through the window. The window doesn't break.
Right.
He picks him up and holds him
Yep.
on the outside of the window.
Right.
Which was it was a weird choice for me. I thought, like, why?
Right.
Are we, like, I mean, it was cool looking, but it felt really weird, the dynamics of how that happened.
So, basically Frank is like, oh, no, I they'll think I'm a suicide. I don't want that. And he's desperately grabbing at his arm as Wu continues to hold his throat. And like, his arm...
pieces of his arm are falling off until eventually the whole arm rips off.
And then he seemingly falls to his death. But then he falls into a chair in his office. His
Safe
phone...
and sound.
Yes.
None of that happened.
Nope.
Or did it?
Yeah, it was an experience regardless of, what happened. But his phone dials the number for Claire.
All on its own, the phone's dialing.
Yes. He gets a voice message, and Frank picks up the phone in a panic and tells her that he needs to talk to her urgently.
Even though it's been 15 years since they spoke.
And Claire is played by Karen Allen. 70 credits for her, including a love interest for Harrison Ford in multiple Indiana Jones, including the most recent one, Ghost in the Machine, Sandlot, and Malcolm X. You got anything different?
I don't have anything different.
Okay. Frank takes a drink and then mysteriously has a golf ball in his mouth. And then it falls over and bounces up and down. Not acting like a golf ball, more like a ping pong ball more than anything else. Because, I don't think a golf ball would get that kind of range bouncing up and down the way it does.
But he told Grace in his message to call him back at any hour.
Not Grace, Claire.
Claire. Sorry, Grace is the next paragraph.
Yep.
So he made it sound very urgent that he needed to speak to this woman. And I have a question for you. If an ex that you haven't talked to in 15 years leaves you a voicemail that says, I desperately need to talk to you, call me at any hour, are you going to reach out?
I might. I might. I don't have bad blood with any of my exes enough to not return a phone call like that. I would be very surprised to get a phone call like that. and I don't think it would necessarily happen in reverse if I made that phone call. Maybe, to my, my last ex, the mother of my child.
That's a different situation.
Yeah, exactly. But so what about you? What's your answer to that question?
I don't know.
It depends on the ex?
I guess. It's a very strange situation, right? That you get this voicemail that's like, something happened, it's urgent, get a hold of me any hour. And then she's just going to show up.
Right. It's interesting that she even knows where to go.
But the fact that they haven't talked in 15 years.
Yep.
I don't know.
So Grace is at home and is asked by one of her kids, and I know these are all grouped together. I didn't bother to take note of them because I knew you were going to.
I got them all.
So, the kid asked her if she got her the bonus, and Grace says she's drying her head with it because she's got the IBC towel.
Now I don't know which kid said that.
Yeah.
I think it was Linnell, the older daughter. So she's there with her family. She's got her mom, her 3 daughters, Calvin, and his older brother. And they're dressing Calvin up as a Christmas tree because they can't afford to buy a real one.
Yeah, and Grace objects to this, but she's finding it, funny at the same time. She's holding back the fact that she wants to laugh, but she's saying, "Get this off of him."
Yeah. So I'll go through these. The grandma's played by Mabel King. She was in The Jerk.
Okay.
With
Steve Martin.
Steve Martin. She was in The Wiz, and she was in 42 episodes of What's Happening.
Okay.
The older son is Steven. He's played by Damon Hines. He was in one episode of Tales from the Crypt, and he was in the Lethal Weapon franchise.
Okay, which Richard Donner also directed, so that makes sense.
And so the older daughter is Linnell. She's played by Raina King. She was in 15 episodes of What's Happening Now. I didn't even know that series had a sequel.
So wait, which actress appeared in the Lethal Weapon series?
The boy.
Oh, okay.
Damon Hines.
Okay.
The older brother.
Gotcha.
But Raina King was in 15 episodes of What's Happening Now, and she's up here. She's still acting. She's in a movie coming out this year, 2024, called Shirley.
Oh, okay. I mean, these were relatively young actors at the time, so.
But we don't always have that where these people that have these small roles continue acting.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And then the other 2 girls, I think they are twins. Mm-hmm. So they're played by Tamika McCollum and Corin McCollum. Mm. And this was their only credit. So there's an example of they didn't stay in acting.
Gotcha. So Frank is informed by his secretary, Ted.
This is that same blonde woman.
Yes.
Who isn't his secretary because Grace is his secretary. So I don't know who she is.
A board member of some kind.
She's somebody that was in that room. My note is this the same blonde woman I couldn't identify?
Yes, it was that same woman. So the ad that he ran, the scary one, ended up killing an 80-year-old woman who died of a heart attack. And far from being upset, he's excited by this publicity. He thinks
this is terrific.
Yes.
And he tells her now, before he had told her to run the ad every hour, now he says he wants it run every half hour.
Right.
But put a disclaimer on it that if you have a heart condition, you shouldn't watch the ad.
So Frank gets into it with a censor on set, played by Kate McGregor Stewart. 59 credits for her, including The Addams Family, Father of the Bride 1 and 2, and an episode of Dinosaur. She objects to a dancer's costume because you can see her nipples. And one of the 2 guys in the scene looks like Jack McGee. I'm pretty confident in this. 224 credits for him, including Moneyball.
So this is one of the people I don't have. So let me find him so that I can...
cross him off the list.
Oh my goodness. So many pages. Who do you think this is?
Jack McGee. I'm confident.
Do you know the credit?
Carpenter? or something along those lines. Yeah, he was a carpenter.
Oh, I have the Carpenters credited somewhere else.
Okay.
Carpenter, got him. Jack McGee. Okay.
Yeah. 224 credits for him, including Moneyball, an episode of This Is Us.
Yes.
The Fighter, and he was a racist gun store owner in Crash.
He was in an episode of X-Files.
I missed that entirely.
Yeah, and 2 episodes of NCIS.
The other, I believe, is Bill Hart. He's 62 credits for him, including 2 episodes of Days of Our Lives.
Okay, so both Carpenters is who you're crediting here.
Yes.
I know for a fact the Carpenters are the ones we see later when he's yelling at them to stop hammering.
Yes. Yep.
So that's where I have them in my notes.
Yep. And yeah, he died on January 2nd, 2015 at the age of 80.
That was Bill Hart?
Yes.
Did you give his credits?
If you did, 2 episodes of Days of Our Lives is what I
Okay, I've got, he was in 28 episodes of Gunsmoke and 4 episodes of Bonanza.
Oh, okay.
So one of those old-timey Western actors.
Yes. So Frank sends the dancer on her merry way and dismisses the Carpenters, who turn around and knock out the censor with a lamp, resulting in Frank calling for the nurse. And he hears a voice call him Lumpy. He thinks it's coming from the censor, but nope, it's Claire. They haven't seen each other in a while. We mentioned 15 years. And Frank suddenly turns charming as he reconnects with her. The dancer director, which I'm pretty sure you probably have, right? The credit for him?
No, so we're at the point now where there's like a lot of people on set.
Yeah.
And I didn't know who was who. So a lot of the people working on the show are just going to be at the end of my notes because I couldn't figure out which person was which.
So basically, the dance person, the director or whatever, wants to show Frank a dance number.
Oh, that's the choreographer. I do have him.
Okay.
I got him.
Okay.
The choreographer is Lester Wilson.
Okay.
And he's an actual choreographer for the Solid Gold Dancers.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, he's their actual choreographer. He also worked on choreography for Made in America, Hot Shots, and Sister Act, to name a few.
Okay. So he basically twists the censor's head to look at the dance number, which is not a good thing to do when, they tell you not to do that.
He does it, and then he's like, can I do that? And the nurse is like,
no, don't do that.
And the nurse is played by Kathy Kinney. She's most recognizable. She was Mimi on the Drew Carey Show.
Oh, okay. I knew I recognized her.
233 episodes of that show. She also was on 33 episodes of Secret Life of the American Teenager.
So Claire asks him if she's going to be okay, and he says, "Oh yeah, sure, she's fine. She's a trooper." The conversation is interrupted by a guy trying to get antlers on a mouse. Frank suggests staples, which both he and Claire react badly to.
Yeah, and so Claire, why are you not running away?
Yeah, my note here is this should be the end of Claire talking to him, but she keeps doing it.
Listen, I don't know what she sees in him.
I don't either.
You left him once.
Yes.
I get you have history. It was 15 years ago. You got a good life going for you. Nothing that he does throughout this film should make you want to take him back.
Right.
Not one thing.
Yeah, he is an awful human being, and I don't understand why she even continues to talk to him after even this scene.
So yeah, he told the Mouse Wrangler.
And by the way, this is Ralph Gervais, and this is his only role, but he has 2 special effects credits.
Right. So I'm assuming, again, like, they're just grabbing people, like, from the studio.
Right.
Whoever's in the building, come shoot a movie with us.
Yep. And so, this should be the end of him talking to Claire. But Frank ends up yelling at Grace's son. This is the other thing. He goes and accosts a kid that's on the stage. Yeah. So and all he has to do now is kick puppies, and his mission to be the worst human being ever.
This is Calvin.
Yeah.
The one who doesn't talk, but
yeah.
Frank hasn't met him yet. This is when they meet. And Claire mistakenly thinks he's talking to her. He's like, "Get out of here!"
Right.
And she's like, "You called me."
Right. So after he attacks a kid, and Grace ends up getting her kid, and she asks, "Why are you so angry?" And then he switches back to charming mode, and it was basically like, why haven't you learned out how to button a coat, basically? And she's too easily suckered back into Frank being his charming self here.
Yeah, and he hints around to find out that she's single.
Right. and he yells at people for hammering.
Yeah, this is those two carpenters. You already gave us their credits.
There is another carpenter or someone there.
I don't know.
Yeah, but or maybe it was the same guy, and I just he was from a different angle, so I didn't recognize him. But
this is where I put the carpenters, the
okay.
people hammering.
Well, who do you have there?
You already said them.
So Bill Hart,
Jack McGee, and Bill Hart.
All right, okay, just making sure. So,
and again, I have an entire list of people that worked on Scrooge.
Yep.
At the end, we'll get to them because I don't know who's who. There's a lot of people there.
So Claire asks what happened last night. She gives him his card.
Her card, rather.
She's
the director of Operation Reach Out.
And he continues to yell at the hammer guys again. Claire ends up sneaking off. Grace has the Times wanting a reaction to the dead woman that died because of the commercial that he ran. And Grace repeats Frank's a-hole response. And then Frank gets on the phone and gives his political answer.
Right, like he's mad at her for saying what he said to say.
Right.
Because, of course, he does know how to handle it.
Right, yes.
He just isn't good at,
communicating?
Yeah.
So he calls for the third time for the hammering to stop. They listen, and half the set gets wrecked in the process. And the censor ends up getting hit again.
Yeah.
And
Lady Censor, which is how she's credited throughout this entire film, takes a lot of damage.
Yes, she does. And Frank says, really upset at this point, just goes to lunch.
Yeah. Remember, he's got a lunch date with the boss.
So at lunch, Preston asks how everything is going, and he unconvincingly says that things are going fine. He orders an eyeball, and Frank orders one as well.
He orders an eyeball? Is that the name of the drink?
The drink was called an eyeball.
Oh, see, I missed that fact.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. We have a head waiter here.
Yeah, he's played by Tony Speedman, 140 credits for him, including Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures.
Yes, he played Socrates.
Yeah.
And he was very recognizable to me.
He was in an episode of the Facts of Life and an episode of My Two Dads, which was created by a writer on Quantum Leap, It's a Wonderful Life, Daniel Alexandra. He created that series, and this is a long way to go to make a Quantum Leap connection. But
you used too many words for me. I lost you.
Yeah, basically, he was in an episode of My Two Dads, who had a creator of that show that wrote an episode of Quantum Leap. Basically, is the connection I'm making there.
He wrote an episode.
Yes.
Okay.
Of Quantum Leap that we recently covered. So Preston is having
recently in time travel time, not by the time anybody listens to
this. So he's having this lunch. He thinks Frank might be stretching himself a little too thin, so he's hired a person to work with him, and it turns out to be Bryce Cummings. Bryce says, that he is no threat, though he's completely full of shit.
Yeah, he's definitely a threat.
Yeah. He starts to realize that it's noon, and he's hearing that he's going to be visited by the burst of ghosts at noon.
And he believes this. He starts freaking out.
Yeah, Bryce talks, and he ends up repeating himself over and over again. I don't know that he's actually doing that, or Frank is just kind of imagining that.
Yeah,
I
don't think he was actually repeating himself. I think that was Frank experiencing this moment weirdly.
Yes, and Frank acts psychotically, laughing, and makes Preston very, very concerned. And the waiter brings a drink with an actual eyeball in it, but later when he takes the drink away, the eyeball is not there.
It isn't there, but he's seeing it. So Frank is seeing things that other people aren't seeing.
And he also asks if the waiter is him, and the waiter ends up correcting his English. He sees someone on fire as he's pressured to give his order, and he ends up throwing water on the waiter. But once again, this is his imagination, and he says, "I'm sorry, I thought you were Richard Pryor," which is a black comedian actor, so I don't think that's the same person.
And what does that have to do? I lost the joke. Is there a reason that you'd want to throw water on Richard Pryor?
No, not that I know of. I mean, maybe there was
there had to have been some joke in there that went over my head.
I'm sure. Like, we're not. This is probably an outdated joke for sure. But anyway, so he basically ends up just leaving the restaurant,
and he trips on his way out of the building. And my note was, I felt like that trip looked really real. I wonder if that was like scripted or if he actually tripped and they kept it.
And by the way, he's just leaving his boss and Bryce back at the at lunch.
Right.
He's not even saying goodbye to them or even staying to order food or anything. So he gets a cab, and the cab ends up crashing into the other cab that he ends up getting into. And he turns out to be a very psychotic cab driver.
And the cab's all decorated for Christmas.
Yep, this is the Ghost of Christmas Past. He's played by David Johansen. 52 credits for him, including Free Jack, Mr. Nanny, and A Very Merry Christmas.
And he is a singer and composer, this man.
Yep.
And let's see, I have that his acting credits include Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, and 3 episodes of Oz.
So, after nearly dying in the cab...
Yeah, because he's driving like a maniac, this ghost.
Frank demands to be taken home, and the ghost does so, but not in the way he means. He's taken to his childhood home. Frank says he gets it. This is the part where he's supposed to get weepy-eyed by his past. The ghost says that someone else said the same thing. I didn't really catch the reference. But once that person saw his mother, it was Niagara Falls.
So, the way the cab mechanic works is the meter on the cab starts going backwards through the years. So the cab's telling us what year we're in. We stop in 1955. On the way, by the way, we passed Elliot again.
1955?
Yeah.
So that's a very clear Back to the Future reference there.
Is it?
It is.
Okay.
Because that movie, the past took place in 1955. November 15th, 1955. That was an important date in time travel history.
Of course, we are on Christmas Eve now.
Right.
All of our ghost visits are going to happen on Christmas Eves.
Yep.
So yeah, they pull up to his childhood home in 1955. It's the only house on the street that doesn't have Christmas lights on Christmas Eve.
Yep.
And he, like, very naively is like, oh, I guess Dad didn't put them up yet.
Right.
It's like, do you not remember your childhood, kid?
I guess not. But Frank says to why don't we just get this over with? The ghost pulls a very Al from Quantum Leap like move.
I got Al the hologram style. He goes through the door,
but of course Frank
and it was a very similar effect.
It can't not have been a visual reference, even though
this is before Quantum Leap started.
Yeah, that's right, 1988.
This is first.
Yeah, 89. Wow, yeah, wow.
I'm wondering if there's some person on the art team that crosses over to Quantum Leap, because it was very, very Al-like the way this was presented. Like I almost feel like I heard the hologram noise.
I think I did. I think we did. So Frank sees himself as a kid watching television with his mom on the couch. Frank as a kid is played by Ryan Todd, same age as me. He was born in 1981. 21 credits for him, including Last Action Hero, Backdraft, and Uncle Buck, which has John Candy in it, which we.
My note didn't make any sense to me.
Okay.
He was in an episode of X-Files.
Okay, I didn't dig into that.
Yeah, he was in an episode of Heroes.
Okay.
And he was a production assistant on Heroes.
So he basically, he liked that genre, apparently.
Okay, and did you mention his birthday? I feel like you did, but I wasn't listening.
Well, I mentioned that he was born in 1981.
Oh, his birthday's Christmas.
Oh, okay.
Very, very fitting.
Okay.
To what we're talking about. So, happy birthday, Ryan Todd.
So Ryan Todd is actually 2 months older than me. Because I was born in February. No. I'm older than Ryan Todd. But anyway,
10
moving
months.
on. Yeah. So Frank's...
So he's a child. He's watching television. His mom's there.
Yep. She's played by Lisa Mende. 30 credits for her, including Gremlins 2, an episode of the John Larroquette Show, and Moonlighting.
She was also in the film Honey, I Blew Up the Kid.
I noticed that.
So she does a lot of sequel movies.
Yes. His charming dad comes home, played by Bill Murray's other brother, Brian Doyle Murray. 167 credits, including Groundhog Day, 3 episodes of Seinfeld, and the movie As Good as It Gets.
He's also the voice actor that plays the Flying Dutchman in all of the SpongeBob universe content.
Yep.
So he's got a lot of credits for that. And yeah, you mentioned Groundhog Day. He's Buster in that.
Yes.
Which I didn't know that was Bill Murray's brother.
I knew that.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
Now I do.
Yep.
I mean, knew it taking these notes.
Right.
I didn't just know it from Groundhog Day.
You didn't know it when you were watching that film back in the day.
Right.
So he gets veal for Christmas, and basically his father acts like a butthead. Who does that remind you of?
So Dad, Earl, is a butcher. He comes home, he's wearing his butcher's apron, it's all bloody. So that's why he's giving his child veal, because he doesn't have to buy it. He is the butcher. And it's a very weird scene. This whole thing's very cringy. Everybody's arguing. He tells his son, if you want a train, go out and get a job, and then you can buy a train.
Right.
And it's like, he's 4.
And his mother's like, yeah, he makes that point. And he's like, all day long I hear all these excuses for why you can't work. My legs hurt. You're only 4 in exactly that kind of way.
Yeah.
It's funny.
And then mom, she's like, I'm going to go out.
Yep.
Now, I'm going to mention this is a pregnant woman. She's pregnant with the little brother right now.
Yeah, exactly. Where is she going?
Right. And she's smoking, by the way, in this scene.
Yep.
Which shows us we're in the 50s. And
Yes.
we were depicting a pregnant woman smoking. But anyway, she's like, it's Christmas Eve. And she's like, I'm going to go out.
Mm-hmm.
Where is this pregnant woman going on Christmas Eve?
Right.
Out of the house to leave
Yeah.
her family. Like, what is happening?
So, originally, when I watched this scene, I never quite got the idea that she was going out. I thought she was going to go to bed or something. But yeah, she does actually say going out. And
Yeah.
that makes no sense whatsoever.
I feel like there's part of the story missing. What's going on with mom?
Did she go and get milk and never return? Like, I guess that's his brother in there, but still.
Yeah, he does get his brother, so
Yeah.
it's not like she disappears.
So his mother tells her...
Is she working a night job? Like,
Maybe.
I feel like there's something missing in this context here.
Yeah, so his mother tells her son not to stay up all night watching television, and Frank does indeed cry at the sight of his mother, Niagara Falls. Frank claims that he was touched by his dad's gift of Beale, which in today's market value would be worth a lot more. The ghost says he spent the next 40 years watching TV.
Oh, I have the next 15 years. Is that wrong?
Probably because, yeah, I think because it would be like, he would only be 19.
I took it as until he started working in TV.
Yeah, I remember 40 years, but, if somebody watching this wants to correct the record, feel free.
He watches TV. That's
Yeah.
the point, is he becomes obsessed with television until it becomes his career.
Frank tries to say he lived, but all he can cite is the things on television that he watched.
Right.
as a
He's
child.
like, I won a baseball game and a hit a home run. And the ghost tells him that was just on a TV show. And then they go through more examples. He even hits Little House on the Prairie. Like, no, that wasn't you.
So next up, we have a Christmas party in 1960.
And you know what? This is probably really sad, but this is us. Like, we spent our childhood watching television shows and getting way too involved in them that now, this is what we do with our free time. We run a podcast talking about television shows from our childhood.
And in a very meta moment, we're going to spend 3 hours talking about this movie. So, yeah. We cut to a Christmas party in 1969 where we see Lou alive and a girl copying her ass in the copy machine. She's played by Rebecca Arthur. She has 19 credits, including being a regular on Perfect Strangers.
And this character's name is Tina.
Ah, yes.
Very, very Quantum Leapy.
So I'm starting to wonder if there was some influence from this movie on the Quantum Leap.
Yeah, because this reminded me of our Tina.
Yeah. In the movie, Get Shorty. So you think that Tina would also take pictures of her ass in a copy machine?
Absolutely.
Okay, I see it.
She's definitely somebody that Al would be friends with.
Oh, absolutely. So she was also in the movie Get Shorty and an episode of Grace Under Fire. She hands one to Frank, one picture, who wants to go get Chinese with him, but young Frank refuses. Older Frank yells at himself, and then young Frank gets hit by a door courtesy of Claire. And this is their meet cute moment.
Okay, before we leave, I want to go back to the party for 1 second. We got a bunch of other credits that I presume most of them are in this scene. I know for sure Mrs. Claus at party is there because her IMDb picture is of this party.
Yes.
So that's where these people come in. She's played by Selma Archard. And again, these are a bunch of people that I didn't see talk, but they got credits.
Yeah, good for them.
She was in 25 episodes of Melrose Place. She was in A Very Brady Christmas, which is a Christmas staple for me, the Brady Bunch Christmas special.
So what you're telling me is at some point you want to cover that movie.
Oh, maybe when we run out of Christmas movies in a couple years.
Yeah.
She was also in Die Hard.
Okay.
And then we have man number 2 at party, played by Jay Bryson. He was in Lethal Weapon 3. Party guest is Harvey Fisher. He was also in Lethal Weapon 3.
Okay.
I wonder if that was filming around the same time.
Richard Donner directed that movie, so it makes sense that some of these actors appear here. So.
And then we have Party Animal, played by C. Ransom Walrod, who has many additional crew credits as Marine Advisor.
Interesting.
So I'm guessing he was a Marine.
Okay.
And advised on scenes that involved Marines.
Oh, all right.
I don't know, but there was a lot of credits that said that, including 2 episodes of X-Files.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, he was the Marine Advisor on 2 episodes of X-Files.
All right.
I'm not done yet.
Okay.
Security guard at the party was James R. Miller, And his only other credit was a 1975 movie called Returning Home. And then we had Fu Ling at party. Now, I picked out who that's supposed to be. And she doesn't have a line. She just, lights a cigarette. I don't know why she gets credit, but that's Jenny Lou Tugend.
Okay.
She has 22 producer credits, including all 3 Free Willy movies. And she is an associate producer on this film.
So that's probably why she got credit.
Yeah, she was, yeah, but, I don't know. It's just so inconsistent.
Yeah.
She also has acting credits for The Goonies and Lethal Weapon 4.
Oh, okay. That would be the last Lethal Weapon movie.
And that's the party. Okay. Now you can move on, and we're at where are we at? A liquor store?
Yeah.
Grocery store? We're at a store.
Frank gets hit by a door. It's Claire. This is their meet cute moment. That's how we get the nickname Lumpy.
This is how he gets the nickname Lumpy, because he gets a lump on his head from running into the door. And he tries inviting her back to this Christmas party that he just left, but she doesn't want to do that. But she invites him to get Chinese food.
Which he just
like Tina did.
Yeah, and which is something he just finished, crapping on. And he gets this really funny look on his face. And then we cut to a year later. Claire's in the tub while Frank calls for her. And, of course, Frank, the older Frank, and the Ghosts of Christmas Past are outside watching.
Yeah, they're watching through the fire escape.
And Frank is like, hey, avert your eyes. Don't be a perv. But anyway.
Yeah, so does the Ghost of Christmas Past remind you of anyone?
A little bit. So
that would be Al I'm talking about.
Yes.
From Quantum Leap.
Yep.
And you know what? I could totally see Dean Stockwell playing this role.
Absolutely.
He's carrying a cigar the whole time. He's walking through stuff.
That's a missed opportunity. We should have had that.
Of course, he does play this role.
Yes.
In an episode of Quantum Leap.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's funny. Wow.
So there's an episode of Quantum Leap. What's the name of that episode?
A Little Miracle.
A Little Miracle.
Yep.
Where Sam and Al decide to Scrooge somebody.
Yeah.
And Al takes on the role of Ghost of Christmas Past. Of course, he mixes it up with James Marley and wears chains and takes a whole bunch of flack for that by mixing his ghosts up. But yeah, he does do this role in that episode.
And he had a lot of fun doing that, based on his performance.
But yeah, watching... So this character, the Ghost of Christmas Past, and who is this actor?
David Johansen.
Okay. It's reminding me so much of Quantum Leap, both because he's reminding me of Al and that episode, but also the other Christmas episode, which you mentioned for some other reason a little bit ago.
A Little Miracle.
Director or somebody you mentioned it for?
A writer of...
So we also have links to that because we're talking about a cab.
Yes.
So we're driving a cab.
Oh, jeez. Wow. So yeah, that was the thing about that episode.
Right. That was about a cab and an angel. This isn't an angel, it's a ghost, but same difference.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah. So
wow.
It's very, this movie feels very Quantum Leapy to me.
Not in tone necessarily.
No, but just a lot of little things, you know?
Right, yeah. So, Frank wants to open Christmas presents, but they will only get to open one,
which is the past Frank.
Yeah. And basically this is the tradition that Claire has. She opens her present and gets knives, and he gets a book on Karma Sutra. And this is when they were happy, they laugh together, and eventually says that the book says that there's a place you can touch a girl that'll make her bark like a dog, and they're screwing around and having a good time. And then we cut to Frisbee the dog show.
In 1971, so we moved 2 years into the future.
And Frank is the dog. The mailman in this scene is played by Roy Brocksmith, 80 credits for him, including Total Recall, Nowhere Man, which, by the way, I did a recent rewatch on, and that's it aged pretty well. And an episode of Star Trek TNG and Deep Space Nine.
Yes, he also was in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
Lou is there, macking on his secretary, played by Stacie Hall, 8 credits.
Stella Hall.
What did I just say?
You said Stacie. That's my name.
Oh, yes.
I was not in this movie.
Nope. 8 credits, including Die Hard, Tales from the Crypt, and Freddy's Dead, The New Nightmare.
Yeah. Also in this scene is the stage manager for the Frisbee show, played by Shawn Michaels, who was in Lethal Weapon 4 and an episode of MacGyver.
Oh, okay. So Lou invites Frank and Claire over for dinner. But Claire and Frank have plans with their friends on Christmas Eve, and they basically end up breaking up over this issue, and Frank could care less.
Yes, because Claire comes right after he made these plans, and she's like, it's Christmas Eve. We can't go to dinner with your boss tonight. We
Right.
got plans. We've had plans for months. And he's basically like, why don't you support me? Mm-hmm. This is important. And I get it that it's important. Your boss asks you to dinner, but it's Christmas.
He's being a selfish ass here. He
no way
around it.
He can't see above himself.
Right.
And like the whole point is, television's all he's ever had. It's all he's ever wanted. This is him breaking into the business. He's playing a dog right now on a kids show, but he's about to become friends with the boss. They're going to become best friends, and this is how he's going to become the president of a company.
Right.
And this is important to him. And you know what? Maybe it wouldn't have went the same if he didn't go out to eat with him on Christmas.
Right. Maybe.
So, I mean, I get where he's coming from, but he literally cannot see Claire's point of view. He literally doesn't understand why she's upset with him for wanting to skip Christmas.
Mm-hmm. The ghost says he has no idea who he is or what's going on. And Frank says he knows who he is and what's going on. And he does until the ghost is on the TV and he's like, what's going on? And suddenly Frank is back at the studio yelling at the actors because of his own issues.
Yeah, so he's back in the present day at the studio where they're prepping for Scrooge.
So he ends up ranting as he walks off stage.
So we see a monitor, and on the monitor it switches from the ghost to Scrooge, and we have an actor here. This is Belle, the character of Belle,
Okay.
which is the character she's playing in Scrooge. We don't know the actress's name. I mean, the fake actress's name. Are you following me?
I am. I don't know that anybody else is. But...
Okay, so the real life actress playing this part is Stacie Parker.
Okay.
And she's playing an actress playing Belle.
Gotcha.
And Belle is, of course, the love interest of Scrooge.
Okay.
So this is Claire's character within Scrooge.
Gotcha.
Stacie Parker, she was in an episode of Star Trek Next Generation. She's in Back to the Future. She has a little tiny part in that.
Oh, okay. Cool.
And I was able to figure out who she is. But again, there's so many people on this set that I couldn't figure out who they were.
Hey, that means we have a connection to Back to the Future, and that means we have an excuse to talk about those movies.
I mean, we have an excuse just because time travel.
Right. Yeah, of course. Okay. So we can do that, regardless. Plus, it's, our podcast, and we can do what we want.
We can do whatever we want.
So
we make the rules.
Right. So,
So he interrupts this scene.
Yeah. And, they are not too thrilled with that. Buddy Hackett basically tells him, are you out of your mind? And he basically starts ranting and talking about his prior relationship with Claire.
Right. And he's saying, what he was supposed to get out of this trip to the past was that he screwed up, right?
Yeah.
But he didn't get that. What he got is, well, nobody's as good as Claire presented to be. She must have some angle. I got to go figure out what's up with her.
So, as he makes his way to visit Claire at the shelter, we see Loudermouth making money off of selling his blood and then fainting, and then Frank walks right by him. He rants right up into the building, and then...
He's rehearsing what he's going to say to Claire. Not good things, by the way.
Yep. And then he goes into it. The volunteers think he's up off the street and basically a crazy person.
The volunteer is the character of Hazel, and she's played by Dolores Hall. I have that she was in 41 episodes of Diagnosis Murder.
So he sits with a couple homeless people, including Melvin, played by Michael J. Pollard. 116 credits for him, including an original Star Trek episode.
Okay, who?
Herman.
Michael. His name is Herman.
Oh, why did I get more? I think I have that somewhere in my notes in the actual way it's supposed to be. But yeah. So,
at least I have his name as Herman. I could be the one that's wrong.
No, I'm pretty sure you're right.
Yeah, so Herman's played by Michael J. Pollard. Go ahead.
One episode of Star Trek, the original series, 2 episodes of Superboy, and Dick Tracy, the movie.
He was also in House of a Thousand Corpses. It's a long career.
Yes.
Going from original Star Trek to 2000s horror movie.
Yeah, he died on November 20th, 2019 at the age of 80. That's pretty recent, given the fact that he was an original series episode. Right? So he wants him to do impressions of Richard Burton, because that's who he seems to think he is.
They think he's Richard Burton, and they ask him to recite lines from Hamlet.
The other two with him are played by Anne Ramsey and Logan Ramsey. I'm assuming that they're together.
Anne Ramsey plays Ava, although she's credited simply as Woman in Shelter. Why, if she's given a name?
Right.
I don't know. She was in The Goonies. She was in an episode of Three's Company.
Yeah, I didn't take any notes of what these two actually did.
Logan Ramsay was in 2 episodes of Lou Grant, which is a spin-off of the Mary Tyler Moore Show. And he also was in 1 episode of Star Trek, the original series.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, we've got some old people, is what I get out of this.
Well, we're in 1988, so...
I mean, they were,
old?
but they're like these old homeless people.
Yes.
And I had totally missed the fact that both of these actors had the same last name. I wonder if they're married or siblings or...
I'm assuming they're related in some way.
Yeah.
That's too big of a coincidence for my taste. So he eventually indulges them in some Shakespeare and is eventually spotted by Claire. They seemingly connect as Frank says he's made some mistakes and Claire thinks he's talking about regret. She says it's never too late, and it goes well until the volunteers have problems, and he starts acting like an ass again.
Yeah, so Hazel comes back as well as woman number 2 in Shelter. So this is the other volunteer. That's how she's credited, woman number 2 in Shelter. She's played by Cinda Scott. And this was her last of 20 credits. But her credits go all the way back to the 1939 film Stage Door.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I was recently looking into the oldest movies I can find on Internet Movie Database because I was trying to see if I could find something that's really, really old to cover at some point, just for that.
I mean, there's plenty of them.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't look on Internet Movie Database. I'd look at what's available.
Well, yeah. So she,
Okay, so the problem is that there are no fuses.
Yes.
In the shelter, and apparently they really need fuses, like right this minute.
Yep.
They didn't tell us why. And this seems like a bigger problem to me, is that A&P didn't send turkeys. And considering it's like already like the afternoon on Christmas Eve, this should have already been an issue, that we don't have the turkeys. But they're just not realizing they don't got any turkeys.
Well, maybe Frank is right. These people should be fired.
Yeah, so he says, they can handle it without Claire's help. Now, I want to point out, this is a perfect mirroring of what happened when she came to visit him at work. She went to visit him at work. He was too busy. Everybody was interrupting him. And he had work to do. The same exact thing is happening here. She has work to do. He's at her job.
Yes.
People are asking her for things to do at her job where she's the boss.
Yes.
And he gets so mad at her.
Yes.
For not paying attention to him that he's like, basically, you know what? Forget it.
Right.
I was trying to take you out, but I changed my mind because you're completely insufferable because you're working.
Right. and he gives some parting advice. Scrape them off. Want to save someone? Save yourself. And she's like, wow, what a wonderful attitude to have on Christmas Eve. And why are you still talking to this guy?
And he gives her a literal bah humbug.
Yes. Yep.
And he leaves.
Herman, hey, what do you know? That's in my notes correctly.
All right.
Asks for money upon leaving, and Frank doesn't give him any.
Yeah, he asked for $2 so he can eat at home. And we'll soon learn where home is.
Yes. So we see the television show as it's being rehearsed. Bryce is now basically taking over the show completely.
And they're on their final dress rehearsal, because remember, this is happening live tonight.
Right. And he calls dinner, and Frank is spotted. Frank says he calls the meal breaks, and he thinks it's time to talk. And Frank is definitely losing control here. The lights go out, and then we meet the ghost of present day.
The ghost of Christmas present.
That's what I meant.
Is how that's,
Right.
That's those are the words. Carol Kane.
Yes, she's a bubbly, demonic spirit.
Of course, she played Simca on Taxi. We already said this. She was in Princess Bride. She was Granny in Addams Family movies.
I have that. 173 credits in total, including voicing a lot of kids shows. She was in 6 episodes of Star Trek Strange New Worlds recently.
Yeah, she definitely has a very recognizable voice.
Yes.
I love this woman.
Yep.
And I loved this character. She's a winged pink fairy playing in bubbles. And then she just has this ridiculous violence streak. All she does is beat him up.
Yes.
And I love it. I love it.
So yeah, she introduces herself by kicking Frank in the nuts and just otherwise abuses him. Our first stop is right outside a Christmas party with the Cooley family. Frank asks what's wrong with Calvin, and she says that he hasn't spoken since his dad died. Frank was clueless about Frank's husband's death, despite the fact that she wore black for a while.
For a year,
yes.
They said.
he asks if he's going to be okay. The ghost says it's his choice. And Calvin is watching Scrooge, and Tiny Tim says, "God bless everyone," which is a what's the word I'm looking for
I'm
here?
not sure what you're trying to get to.
It's a
It's a line from the actual story that
yes.
becomes important in this movie.
It's foreshadowing. There we go.
Okay. Yeah. So the kid has a thing for Tiny Tim.
Yep.
We see it here. We'll see it later when he's on set because we learn we already saw him. He was on set with Mom. Mom came home for a dinner break. Mm-hmm. And then they're going to go back. And she's also going to bring her older daughter with her this time, too.
So the family screws around the kitchen.
Yeah, they're play fighting.
Yeah, giving each other raspberries. The ghost ends up getting Frank some raspberry and then hits him. And he ends up at James' Christmas party.
Not before he agrees to give Grace a raise.
Yes.
She kind of forces him into saying that.
James' wife is played by Wendy Malick. 196 credits for her, including the series Just Shoot Me, The American President, and 2 episodes of the Night Court Revival.
She's also in 22 episodes of Young Sheldon. She's in I don't know if you said any of these. I might have missed you. She's in an episode of Lower Decks.
Okay, yep.
She was in 2 episodes of This Is Us.
Yes.
She played the mom. What's his name?
Jack?
No. Kate's husband.
Kate. Oh, Toby.
She was Toby's mom.
Right. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And she was in an episode of X-Files. Did you get any of those?
I did not mention the X-Files, but I did know about that.
Okay.
Also in the scene is guest Joel Murray, writer Mitch Glazer, and Susan Isaacs of 2 episodes of Quantum Leap.
Susan Isaacs.
2 episodes of Quantum Leap, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. And this
Although
time,
she was only a photograph in
Yes.
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
but this time I actually knew who she was and spotted her. So also in the scene is John Murray as well. He's credited as one of the guests in the scene. So that's rounds out the...
No.
He's not?
No.
Oh, I thought he was.
There's 2 men and 2 women.
Oh, okay.
The other one is a woman, Lori Kempson.
Okay.
And this is her only credit.
Gotcha. So James got a top-of-the-line VCR, which is not a towel, by the way.
Yeah, so he was upset to see that.
Yeah.
One thing I want to bring up about Joel Murray. He's actually in an episode of Extended Family.
Oh, okay.
We covered that show
In its entirety.
back last fall.
Unfortunately.
Is that when it was on last fall?
Something like that? Yeah.
Whenever that show was on.
I think that was like more of a summer show, but I'm not really
Whenever
sure
it aired, we covered it.
Yeah.
It was the episode, The Consequences of Being Irish.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I didn't realize that. So his wife asks him when he's going to learn not to bother inviting his brother to the Christmas party. And James basically says he's never going to learn that. He's his brother. And he mentions... what he's getting his brother for Christmas, and of course Frank gets his ears plugged by Carol Kane, the ghost.
Yeah, because she doesn't want him to hear his gift.
Yep. And James gets a trivia question about Gilligan's Island.
Yeah, so they're playing Trivial Pursuit, and all these questions are about classic TV, and Frank knows all the answers, right? Because he's the one that was watching TV his whole life. He knows all the answers. Nobody at the party knows any of the answers to any of these questions.
The ghost says it's time to go, but Frank wants to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you could have been at this party.
Right.
And now you're like...
that's the whole point. He's realizing what he's missing out on.
Right, yeah.
But, to be fair, I do have to say he is working tonight.
Okay.
Now, granted, he could have, decided not to do a live show Christmas Eve. This is his fault.
Right.
But considering it's happening, he does kind of need to be there.
Yes.
So he can't just, take the night off when he's the president that's putting on this show that's live.
So she hits him with a toaster and falls into the sewer. Now, I was really confused about this scene, exactly where it was in the timeline. But we see a frozen Herman.
I mean, this is the Ghost of Christmas Present.
I get that now.
So it's all things happening presently.
Well, I wasn't sure if this had happened yet. Like if Herman had
Ghosts
actually...
of Christmas Present.
Yeah, I get that. But I thought there was a chance that maybe we could have saved Herman.
No, this is not Groundhog Day. We don't get to save the homeless person that dies of freezing.
Right. So he yells at him, calling him a moron, saying he should have stayed at Claire's, that he would be a much prettier color. He tries to get out, basically rams the door, and finds himself stumbling around the set and being yelled at by Bryce until Bryce realizes who he is.
Yeah, and he makes a barrel go flying. Of course, it goes and hits Lady Sensor.
Yeah.
Right in her bandaged face.
Yeah.
I think she's having the roughest day out of anyone here.
It seems to be. I mean, maybe Loudermilk, but,
Oh, yeah. She's right up there with both of them, though, for having rough days. And you know what? She's sticking it out, and she's working.
She is a real trooper.
Nobody else is doing anything productive, but she's literally doing her job and hanging with it, even though she's covered in bandages at this point.
So she is not the hero that we deserve, but the hero we need right now.
I think this says something about the work mentality of men versus women.
I'm not going to comment there. I'm just going to leave that one alone. So Bryce ends up babying him and sends him upstairs. In the elevator, he runs into the television ghost of Christmas Future. He's played by Chaz Connor. Only other credit for him is Meet the Hollow Heads in 1989, which happened after this movie.
Right. So Frank mistakes him and thinks this is his ghost, like an actual ghost of Christmas Future, because he's caught on by now. He knows what's happening. He understands that he's Scrooge, right?
Yep.
So he's waiting for the ghost of Christmas Future, but this isn't him. This is literally just the person playing him in the TV movie. And Frank scares him.
And so after he ends up going up, the show begins. Calvin watches enthralled. Frank looks over the city in his office. And Preston watches at home with his wife and the cats. And his wife is played by Maria Riva. 27 credits for her. This would be the last one. No word on her death exactly. There's nothing saying that she died.
Well, she definitely must have.
She would be over 100 years old.
So this was her... It was not only her last credit, but it was her first credit
since 30 years.
Since 1958.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know like who she is or why she was there, but I feel like this is a cameo of some sort. Like I feel like people are supposed to know who she is. Like that she just came back to acting after 30 years to do this role.
So her very first credit, by the way, was the Scarlet Empress in 1934.
Crazy.
Yes. The cats are indeed watching television.
They are. It's working, and the Preston's very impressed.
Yes. So Frank opens his gift from his brother, and it's a picture of the two of them as kids. And, this is a touching little moment. I think this is a nice little moment for him. Yeah,
and there's a note on it that says, Frank's the best brother he could have had. He's got pretty low expectations.
He does, I guess. So, the other one, no, that was his wife. Never mind. That wasn't his sister. So, as Frank drinks, the ghost of Christmas Future tries to get him through the TV, but Loudermilk finds him first with a shotgun, and he has had a really bad day. His wife left him, his dog died, etc., etc. I'm making up the dog dying part.
His wife left him and took the baby girl.
Yes.
And then he became a drunk.
Yeah, and in one day, this is what happened.
Let's see, I'm going to back up just a second. Back at the Rhinelander house, we also met their butler. He was played by James Kindlin, who was actually Bill Murray's stand-in on Groundhog Day.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, and he also had a small role in Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Okay.
And we also, during this whole little bit where we're cutting back and forth between we're seeing part of the show that's happening, right?
Yeah.
So we got to see the Ghost of Christmas Present TV version within the production, who's played by Pat McCormick.
That sounds familiar.
Pat McCormick was in Smokey and the Bandit and its sequel movie. And he was a program staffer on 48 episodes of I've Got a Secret.
Oh, wow.
Which was like one of those 1950s, 60s game shows.
Oh, okay.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do. I'm not familiar with the show. I am curious as to what the secret actually was.
Well, so people would come on and they would be like, and there'd be a celebrity panel and they'd try and guess like what this person's secret was.
Gotcha.
And it would be like, oh, I run a business, stapling antlers on mice.
Okay. So it wasn't like, a secret that was held until the final episode.
No. The idea was the celebrity panel would have to guess what this person's deal was.
Okay.
That they were here to talk about.
Did anybody
So your secret would be I run a podcast about television shows.
Okay. That's a pretty boring secret.
Where I've interviewed, celebrities.
Yes.
Across the world.
All right. So, yeah.
And then we have an uncredited listing, and it's ridiculous to me, all of these credited listings. But do you know who's uncredited?
Who?
The Ghost of Christmas Future.
I didn't even realize that.
It's an uncredited listing, because he doesn't speak, I get it. But, like, half these people who have credits don't speak in this movie.
All right, so what's the actor?
His name is Robert Hammond, and I don't have anything for him.
Okay.
I don't know if I didn't look or if there wasn't anything. This was pretty late in my notes.
Gotcha. Well, it's pretty late in the movie.
Yeah.
So, basically, Louder Milk is about to shoot him, and he ends up getting to the elevator. So he's about to shoot him, and then he falls into the elevator where he encounters the true ghost of the future. Ghost
of Christmas Future.
Christmas Future. And who's really disturbing. He's got, like, you open up his jacket, and he's got these, like, hellish creatures inside him.
Like, in his ribcage?
Yeah. And Frank's like, we're going to get some help from that, from the censor who has, like,
yeah, because now, before he mixed up the TV guy for the real ghost, and now he's mixing it up and he's reversing it. And I don't know, is he, like, does he literally not get it? Or is he just making a joke?
I don't know. So an elevator ride takes him to the future. And
so they are going down in the elevator. And as they go down and drop floors, they're going further and further into the future.
And this he sees older Calvin with his mother at an asylum. And he's played by Ralph Harris. His only credit is a Richard Pryor film titled Moving.
From 1988, so the same year as this.
Yes.
He's in a padded white room, and Grace is there visiting him.
Yeah.
And that's how he's spending that future Christmas, because remember, these are all on Christmas Eve. And the orderly tells her she has to go. The orderly is played by Wayne A. Finkelman. He is a costume designer on this film.
Oh, okay.
As well as a bunch of other movies, including Overboard. That's another one I really like.
That's with Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell.
Yes.
Yeah. So basically, Frank is like, you know what, we're gonna fix this.
Yeah. So he's starting to get it. He's like, well, this is just, this isn't. It's the future. It hasn't happened yet. He says, I know the head of pediatrics at NYU. I can prevent this future from happening. And also, like, I have an issue with this. Your kid ends up in an institution because he refuses to talk.
I think there might be something else going on here. I don't think that's why he's there. But basically the insinuation is that he is mentally unwell. But yeah, I don't think you end up in an institution just because you don't talk. Because, monks, or there's certain...
So you're saying other things happen with him in this future.
Yeah.
Where he is refusing to talk.
Yeah.
He spirals further than that, is what you're saying. Yes,
that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
So then we see a future scene with Claire, who's done a complete 180 and turned into the completely selfish person that Frank wanted her to be. She's basically like, she got some advice, and she's shooing kids away.
Yeah, she's having lunch with two friends, and I didn't figure out who these friends were.
So is it implied to hear that Claire ended up with Frank in this future? Or did she just turn into a total...
I don't think that at all.
Because she's rich.
She stopped doing charity and lived her own life.
Yeah. And she basically credits Frank.
Yeah, because she says, like, a friend once told me. So I don't think they're together. I think that in this scenario, he never spoke to her again.
So I don't necessarily buy this 180-degree turn from Claire.
No.
It does not make sense for her character.
She's not going to give up humanitarian work because he told her to.
Or even if she does, like, stop doing this.
She's not going to become this person who's telling the homeless kids asking for help to go away.
Right. I just don't. I don't buy it. I don't see it.
Yeah, this scene's really weird.
Yeah.
The waiter is played by Giles Savard.
Mm-hmm.
He was also in Pee-wee's Big Adventure and 11 episodes of Defiance.
And then we are taken to a funeral that Frank thinks is Jane's, but it's...
So yeah, the elevator went down again, and this time they're at the very bottom of the elevator shaft. It makes these loud noises, like, this is the end of the ride. There's nowhere else to go on this elevator.
So he thinks it's James, but it's not. He calls up for Wendy because he recognizes her. And then James comes by. And then Frank realizes that it's him, tries to prevent himself from being incinerated. And then he ends up in the coffin. And it's a very disturbing scene. I thought so as a kid, for sure. And then he ends up back in the elevator. He's alive.
He's kicking and screaming. The priest in that scene's played by Michael O'Donoghue.
No, that's the writer.
Yes, that's the writer. He's the writer, and you mentioned he was a writer for SNL and some other things. He appears here as the priest.
So he's back on the elevator. He's alive,
and he's very happy to be alive.
Yeah, and Loudermilk still has a gun on him, but he ends up like tossing him around, kissing him.
He kisses him, and he says he's like, I'm gonna be better. I'm gonna start with you, and Elliot gets scared.
I would be too. He basically says, I'm going to double your original salary.
He gives him raspberries.
Give him a promotion and give him an office. Do you even know that you're going to have a job after this to make do on this promise?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't think you would.
So Elliot is confused, but is enlisted to help Frank.
And Frank admits he's a schmuck.
Yes, which is a Jewish word, apparently. And Frank is excited that it's still Christmas and that he didn't miss it.
Yeah, because the bells chime. It's 11:45. He's got 15 minutes left to change, because apparently you have to change before midnight strikes.
Yeah, I guess so.
Is that part of a Christmas Carol?
I don't know. I don't think so. But Frank interrupts the broadcast by catching the coin, which Bryce joyfully says he's finished. Loudermilk holds a gun on the people in the booth, who's doing all the television technical stuff, where Bryce happens to be. And
he interrupts the boy that's supposed to catch the coin and talks to him. His name's Mike. He has him say hello to his parents. I could not find a credit for anybody named Mike, so I don't know who this kid is. But he's not credited as Mike. He might be credited as like one of these technicians or some random person. I don't know who they are, but again, very weird that I couldn't figure out who this kid was.
So, he holds a gun on the people in the booth. He says he doesn't like his chances to stay president after this, and he says, well, I'm president now, so that's all that matters. Frank rambles, talks about his brother. He confesses the towel that was the actual gift from Grace.
He says the VCR was from Grace. He asks, who would be stupid enough to schedule a live show on Christmas Eve?
Yep.
And cameraman on Crane, who's played by Sam Drummy, says, only you would. I don't know. I think I'd be scared to speak out to this man, especially when he's seeming very crazier than usual. But cameraman Sam Drummy decides to. He's an actual camera operator.
Yep.
He was the camera operator for 102 episodes of Whose Line Is It Anyway? He also worked on Big Brother and in Living Color.
Interesting.
All as camera operator, although he does not have a camera operator credit on this film. He only played one on TV.
So, and he also ends up answering the question that James got wrong, which was the USS Minnow. That was the boat that they got stranded on.
Right, so we're cutting back and forth a lot, and we're seeing, the party now. And what's the brother's name?
James.
They're like marveling at how did he know what was happening here.
And then he says hi.
And they're also very touched that he's being brought up. And
he says hi to James' wife, and she seems to be touched by that for some reason.
Yeah.
I'm kind of actually curious about that relationship. I'm sure it's not good, but is there any relationship there at all?
There must be some.
Yeah.
They clearly know each other. Yeah, I mean, we don't know how long they've been married, but presumably a while. So she's been having to deal with.
And by the way, this is the point in the movie where the movie just goes totally off the rails.
Yeah, and it's going to be flipping back and forth between every character we've met.
Yeah,
because the movie's happening live, and everybody's at home watching it. So we've got the shelter watching it.
Well, not the movie. The movie's not live.
The Scrooged. The movie within the movie is happening live, and so there's all these people watching it. We've got the Rhinelanders and their cats are watching it, and we're cutting back and forth to them. We've got Grace's family, the ones that aren't here, they're still at home watching it. We've got the brothers' party, like all of these different people we keep cutting to. And seeing how they're reacting to all of this happening.
So Preston calls the booth and ends up giving, Loudermilk ends up giving credit to Bryce Cummings for Frank being on the air, and attributes, Frank's presence on the show as being his doing. and saying that Bryce called him a butthead, and this results in a cat being kicked by Preston. So Preston is the one that ends up kicking the cat, not Frank. So he doesn't get to complete the complete douchebag award just yet.
Yeah. Frank says he wants champagne for 250 people.
Right.
He wants to have a party now. Basically, he's interrupted the broadcast. Nobody's going to get to see the end of the film.
Yep.
To give this speech about how he wants to be a better person. We're holding people by gunpoint. And then insisting they party and celebrate.
So, I hate to break the mood here, but Loudermilk is holding a gun in the booth.
The people making the broadcast.
So this is an actual crime, and despite what he might say to the boss, Bryce can still give his version of events.
Eventually, once he's untied.
Which involves a crazy gun person that was sent there by Frank.
Yeah.
So I think people are going to jail after this movie is over.
And Frank tells the viewers at home.
Yep.
He's like, "Why are you watching television?
Yeah.
What are you doing? Okay, first of all, why not watch television on Christmas Eve? It's midnight. You should be done partying.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with watching television.
Yeah.
Sorry." But he's like, call your college roommate. Call an old army buddy. Call your personal banker.
Right.
I don't think your banker wants to hear from you at midnight on Christmas.
Right.
I really don't think they want that phone call.
So Frank continues to ramble, and he ends up kissing a dancer that's under the mistletoe.
This is it's an uncredited listing. Mistletoe girl / dancer. She is Eileen Fairbanks.
And
whose name sounds familiar to me.
It does.
I don't know why, though.
So this results in the censor end up kissing Bryce.
Yeah, she thought this looks like a good idea, so she stops censoring, and she goes and attacks Bryce.
And
who is tied up, remember?
Right. He starts to talk about Claire. Frank says it's Christmas Eve, it's not too late.
Yeah, because he says the mistletoe kiss was good, but there's only ever been one great, and that was Claire, and he messed up with her. But it's not too late. It's not midnight yet, because apparently if it strikes midnight, it's too late for them to repair their relationship.
Right. My note here asks, is Herman here? Is he okay? Or is he frozen to death?
He's frozen to death. That happened already.
Herman is dead.
Nobody noticed that he left. The rest of the shelter is cheering at this.
Nobody cares about poor old Herman.
So Claire goes and hails a cab, asking if she can get to the IBC building in 3 minutes, because again, at the stroke of midnight, apparently it's too late.
Right.
We have to get there before midnight.
And he gets picked up by the ghost of Christmas past.
Yeah, so of course he can get her there in time.
Right. So Preston has calmed down. He's starting to get into things.
The crew's singing Christmas carols now.
And then he rambles some more as he starts to break down and gets all emotional. And then Calvin slides up next to him and whispers to him to say, "God bless everyone.
God bless us, everyone."
And the curse is broken.
Yes, this is his first time speaking in years, which of course the audience of the IBC and most people have no idea the significance of this.
But his mother certainly does.
But the mother, Claire does. Not Claire. What's her name? Grace does. And Frank does. And Frank's suddenly the good guy, and he's happy, and they all hug.
So Claire makes her way to the set, and she's dragged out onto the show despite her protests, and he kisses her. And then everyone breaks out into song.
Yeah, Grace leads the crowd in song.
He sees the ghosts of Christmas past, present,
all
and
of
future.
the ghosts are there.
Lou and Herman with angel wings. So I guess he's
Oh.
Yes.
I was like, who is that guy?
Yes, that was Herman.
Okay. I was very confused by that ghost.
And then we have credits, which goes on and on.
Elliot makes the crew join in on the singing as well, because they're still not having a good time. The booth people are still not enjoying it.
Even,
everyone else is enjoying
imagine
it.
that, having a gun pointed at your head.
And then Frank this is when he gives his nod to Little Shop of Horrors, and he gives the line, "Feed me, Seymour," for no reason whatsoever.
It's a non sequitur within the movie.
And then he breaks the fourth wall.
Yes, he's talking to us.
He's talking to the audience in the theater watching the film, and is calling upon different sects of people in the theater to start joining in the carols, which is very weird.
It's a very silly ending.
And
to this film.
I wonder if that worked. I wonder if people started singing in the theaters.
Maybe
when this was, in theaters.
Yeah, like I said, this movie goes off the rail in this last little bit.
It's crazy. it's a weird wrap up, but it's supposed to be like this happy ending. And no, I have no idea what Claire sees in him or why they're going to get back together.
But apparently they are, and yeah, so.
And the boss seems happy too at the end.
Yes.
He wanted to fire him a minute ago.
Yeah.
I think the only person who's going to be unhappy in all of this is Bryce, unless he really likes that censor lady. So maybe he'll be happy too.
So maybe they'll get together and get married, and then forget all about the fact that he had a shotgun on him that long ago.
Who knows? All right, so I have a lot of credits left to go through.
All right, let's do it.
I'm going to start with the actual credited people who I just couldn't match up. Okay. So we have a character named Wayne, played by Bruce Jarchow. He was in 17 episodes of the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids TV show and 33 episodes of Weird Science.
Okay.
We have stage manager, played by Paul Tworp. He was in the X-Files movie.
Okay.
And the Goonies.
Wait, which X-Files movie, though?
Oh, it was just called X-Files. And it was a movie. That's all I got.
Oh, okay.
You'll have to go look.
So was it like I Want to Believe or Fight the Future?
It just said the X-Files with no, episode listing, so I assumed it was a movie.
Okay. I'll have to look into that.
We have the character of art director, played by Ron Strang. And he was the scenic artist on this film.
Okay.
But this was his only acting credit.
Mm-hmm.
So he was an art director playing an art director.
Gotcha.
Somewhere in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
We have the foreman, who was played by Alvin Hammer. He was in a ton of 1940s, romance movies. And he was in 2 episodes of The Ben Stiller Show a little more recently.
Gotcha.
We have Mary Lou Retton's coach, who I assume I planned to find was her real coach, but it wasn't. It was an actress named, or I don't know if this is an actress or an actor, Miro Paulo. And they were in The Alien Within. Mm-hmm. I don't know what that is. Nephew. I don't know whose nephew, but the character of Nephew was played by Ralph Bruno. He was in Quantum Leap.
Was he? What episode?
He was in Seabride, and he played the head steward.
All right.
So he wasn't a child nephew. He was a grown-up.
He must have been, because, yeah.
In 1988, yeah.
Yeah, and that
so
episode...
I don't know who Nephew's supposed to be, but he was in Quantum Leap.
Okay.
He also was in 2 episodes of Wings.
Oh, that's cool.
Then we have 2 characters called Harpy.
Harpy?
I don't know what that means, but they were played by Susan Barnes, who was in an episode of Roswell, 2 episodes of Growing Pains, and the other Harpy was Lynn Randall. She was in 3 episodes of Remington Steele. Now, these 2, that was my best guess as being the friends that was having lunch with Claire in the future. But I couldn't confirm that. I tried looking these actresses up.
Yeah, that would make sense, though.
Yeah, because they're 2 female actresses credited the same way as Harpy, and I don't know what that means. But that was my best guess, but I couldn't confirm it. I tried looking these people up to see what they look like, and I didn't get anywhere. Videotape directors, played by Tom Doick. His other credits are for directing and stage managing. He's worked on 2.5 Men and Herman's Head, among other things.
Yep.
We have the character of Marvin. Is that the name that you tried giving the guy that wasn't named Marvin?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a character named Marvin, played by Winfred Tennyson.
Okay.
I don't know who Marvin was.
I'm pretty sure I thought he was one of the homeless people.
Well, the 3 that had lines in that scene were not him.
Okay, yeah.
They were all given names. I don't know. But Marvin, played by Winfred Tennyson, who is a boom operator on this film.
Okay.
No other acting credits.
Gotcha.
And then we had technicians. We had Steve Cohen, somebody named Steve. He was in the Lethal Weapon franchise and Free Willy 2. Another technician, Henry Brown. He was in an episode of Star Trek Voyager and Lethal Weapons 1 and 3. We have Janine Jackson as a technician. She was in Quantum Leap.
Okay.
She was in The Leap Back. She played Kelly.
All right. Yeah, okay.
She was also in 17 Again and Pleasantville. And then we had technician Amy Hill. She was in 94 episodes of the Magnum P.I. reboot, the recent one, and 8 episodes of the sitcom Mom. And then we have TV crew as a credit for Norman T. Wilson. He was in Lethal Weapons 1, 2, and 3 as 3 different characters.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it must have been small parts.
Yes.
And that's all of the credited listings. And I have a few more uncredited listings that I wasn't able to match up. Don't have any role information for them because I gave up, but I will give you their names. We had Man in Restaurant, played by Bo Dare. IBC Technician, J. Mills Goodlow. We had Jim Hendricks in archive footage for Commander USA, which was probably when the boy was watching the movie, The Christmas Carol.
Okay.
Because this was a TV, it was like he introduced movies. That's what this guy did.
Okay.
We had Restaurant Patron, played by Katherine Jansen. Man in Elevator by Sam Nickens. Street Urchin / Caroler, Mitchell Roach. Singer, Daniel Shiplakoff, maybe. Restaurant Patron, Walter Spear. TV Holiday Special crew member, Adrian Tafoya. And the drunk, Oliver Thies.
Okay.
And that's all 115 actor listings on IMDb.
Well, I am
And I
impressed.
feel like we also covered half of the crew that had actor listings.
Yes, probably.
We don't usually get into crew other than director and writer, but I think we did this time on accident.
Yeah. All right.
And that was Scrooged.
And I can die.
I feel Scrooged.
Yeah. I can die happy knowing that I have covered this film.
We covered it. I feel like I wrote the novelization. It's all here. 13 pages.
Now all I have to do
How long have we been recording, Dave?
Right now it is 2 hours on the dot.
We're at a 2-hour podcast.
Yes. Presuming I don't make some cuts and then end up
probably a couple, but that's fairly lengthy.
Yes, it is.
How long was the film? Was 100 minutes.
I think it was a little bit longer.
It was 100 minutes because when I was taking notes, I was literally counting the percentage I was done by how many minutes.
That would make it about an hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah, so we've already talked longer than the movie went on, which is unusual for us. Usually we manage to cut it down recently.
Not this time.
We've been doing better at taking less time than the actual thing we're talking about, unless we're talking about From.
Right, of course.
Our episodes of From are always longer than
the episode itself, because we're getting into like ridiculous theories.
Right. But usually like when we're covering a holiday film, it's a little more straightforward. And I think the reason is because I had 115 people to shout out, but I gave you all of their names, and there they are.
Yes, there they are for prosperity.
There they are.
Now all I have to do is cover Groundhog Day, and my life is complete.
Groundhog Day, I look forward to doing. So we'll be doing that in a couple months for February.
Yep.
And that, for me, is definitely always going to be the better Bill Murray film.
I mean, that's one of my all-time favorite
I feel
movies.
like this and that do have a lot of parallels to each other.
Yeah, I see it. I mean, it's the same kind of plot.
Yeah, it's very similar feeling.
I think there's a lot of Bill Murray movies that are kind of like that.
Sure.
Like where they have the same kind of character progression where he starts off as a total jerk base
Right.
and then, I think that's a theme of a lot of his movies.
Yeah, but there are like even a lot of plot points, like the dead homeless guy.
Yes.
So, yeah, I'll stick with that though. This movie, I'm glad I watched it again.
Yeah.
I don't know that I needed to dive into it as deep as we did.
No, probably not, but that's what we do
But
here.
we did it.
Yep.
We did it, and now it's in my knowledge bank.
Yes.
And now we have covered more of Susan Isaac's portfolio.
Yep.
We should look her up. Is she alive? Is she acting?
pretty sure
Let's find Susan Isaacs. She needs to be our new best friend.
Okay, let's do it. Let's get her on for an interview so she can tell us what it's like to be a photo in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Let's find Susan Isaacs.
Okay.
I mean, our friends at the Quantum Leap podcast might already have talked to her. I don't know.
I'm sure.
They've talked to everybody.
Well, we could always ask them.
We'll ask them. We're going to find you, Susan Isaacs.
All right.
You're our next goal.
That sounds like a scary threat. But, all right. So, anything else to say about this movie? Concluding?
We covered it.
Yes, we did.
We did. What do you guys think of the movie?
Yes, and
Scrooged.
our podcast. We should have a code word.
What do you think of Scrooged compared to other renditions of A Christmas Carol?
Very good question.
Yeah, maybe we'll cover a different version next year.
So, code word. Do you have one?
Code word.
If you actually watched all the way through to this point.
I can't think of anything good.
How about A Christmas Carol?
Well, that seems pretty basic.
Okay.
Something, more obscure.
something more obscure. The USS Minnow.
There you go. USS Minnow. Put that in the comments if you've listened to our entire 2-hour babbling about this movie.
All right.
And that way we'll know you're here, and we appreciate you so much.
We absolutely do. All right, Stacie, we reached at.
I can reach on Twitter, X, Instagram, and Threads at TVN Coupon Talk.
We would like to hear from you. Comment, and we will shout you out at some point. If you like this video and want to support the channel, there are a number of ways to do so. You can follow me on Twitter at KormanProductions. You can join one of my Korman Productions Facebook pages. You can buy something from the Korman Productions or on Zazzle. You can buy me a copy. You can join the Korman Productions membership for 99 cents a month. And of course, you can like, share, and comment on this video, as well as subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell so you're notified when new content drops. This is Dave and Stacie from Korman Productions, signing off.